Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. On Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I do these live streams that last as long as the questions do. So I'm hoping we have some good questions tonight, and I'm hoping my information is going to help some people. Maybe two people's. That'd be great. To give you a few minutes to get your questions into the comments, which my goal is to answer every single one, I'm going to talk about, for hopefully 10 to 20 minutes, if it goes too long, someone call me, how timing the market is a huge mistake that a lot of people are making. Like, I've got some actual real life friends and they are trying to time the market. It's not like they want to listen to me or should listen to me because they're friends, and most of us shouldn't get our advice from our friends. And when it comes to real estate, one of the things to understand is your agent and your lender are not your mentor. You can get advice on how to close a deal. That's what your agent's job is. And you can get advice on loan products because selling loan products is what your lender's job is. But to actually invest in real estate, you should be listening to somebody who's invested in real estate, actually owns some rentals, and is successfully doing it. I've actually reached out and tried to find out from a few people. So if this is you, reach out to me because I'd like to pick your brain, who used to own rentals but sold them and no longer do. Because 10 years ago, I didn't think it was really possible for me to retire. I was a single parent with 3 kids, wasn't making a lot of money, found out about a bunch of bad debt during the divorce. And I thought, and I even said this to my kids several times, I'm going to work until I die. Huh. 10 years later, I retired. I've been retired over a month now, living a life I barely thought was possible. I mean, it really sucks. Don't retire, because all you do every day is whatever you want. It's terrible. I would not be in a position to be able to quit my job if I listened to the first real estate agent that I worked with, who actually had rentals. He had invested in a different way than me. So even an agent who's an investor sometimes might not be the best mentor to have. Most people, if you talk about timing the market, they'll know the quote of time in the market beats timing the market. Like it has a catchy cadence to it, so people say it. And in real estate, a lot of people ignore it. And I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't know anything about stocks. I wouldn't own a stock if someone gave it to me. Like, I would have to educate myself on that investing platform before I would want to own any of that investment. I haven't, and I don't want to take the time to. I picked an investing strategy that made work optional. If you've chosen stocks and you can make work optional, great. That's not the route I chose. So what I'm about to say, you can butcher in the comments. Feel free, because I don't understand stocks. But if someone reached out to me, a friend or somebody who said, you know, I like your advice, I like your content on your channel, it's very simple, I can understand it, which is great, because it has to be simple for me to understand it. That's the whole point. And they said, what do you think of stocks? Like, my heart is set. I'm going to invest in stocks. What is your advice for me? So if my kids reached out, or somebody like that I was going to give advice to, and I would give the caveat of, I don't invest in stocks, so you probably shouldn't listen to me. So you want to go research it and educate yourself. But if they just had to hear what I had to say about stocks with no education, no knowledge, and only knowing what I've heard people talk about, I haven't even done the YouTube University self-education on stocks yet. I don't know if I ever will. But here would be my answer. If you're going to invest in stocks, I would use the dollar cost averaging strategy, where you don't think, what's going to happen to stocks in 6 months? What's going to happen in a year? What's going to happen with the economy? What's happening to the dollar? You don't try to use the crystal ball, which is not good for telling the future. All it's good for is dropping during a video recording and breaking your LVP, giving you an entire afternoon of learning how to swap out just one plank, which was actually kind of fun. Dollar cost averaging is where you take a set amount of money, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever, and you invest that amount into stocks. So that's the first step. We're not trying to time the market. We're going to use dollar cost averaging. There have been several studies done where over a long enough period of time, even somebody who timed it right by investing at the right times would not perform as well as somebody who dollar cost average, because you miss certain key days of certain stock growths throughout the years. So dollar cost averaging makes sense. People go, okay, I get that. And then we say, I would invest into a well-diversified index, portfolio, so that I'm not trying to pick stocks. Because if you're all in on Tesla and you think it's great and then it crashes, you lose a bunch of money. But if you're all in on this index and Tesla is one of those and they crash, the others carry it. So not as much chance for the gain, not as much chance for a huge loss. So that would be my strategy: dollar cost averaging, an index fund. It's not much different in real estate, except for things happen over a much longer period of time. Prices in real estate are sticky. It's the concept of rockets and feathers. And everybody complains about gas prices and they go up really fast. Why do they not come down? Well, because what makes prices go up of fuel is oil. When oil price goes up, the cost to the company that's selling the fuel has to go up immediately. They're not going to sell at a loss. So when the oil goes up, the fuel goes up. When the oil goes down, the only thing that motivates the gas station to lower their prices is when their competitors lower it to narrow their margins, to take people away from them. So then they go back and forth and come down. So it goes up like a rocket, down like a feather. Real estate does the same thing. When certain things like interest rates jump up and it becomes harder to buy, you can see prices come down. I still don't know of any market in the United States where prices are lower than they were in 2021. They might be lower than they were last month, because month-on-month data doesn't mean anything. Every single year, there are different months where it goes up and it goes down. Some of that's done because of market trends. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time talks about this, where, and it's funny, he talked about most of his best deals being between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Almost all of my deals were in the winter. I bought one where I closed in May. The rest were closed in between November and February, because we have less competition. There's less people trying to buy. People with kids don't want to move mid-school year. And so for me, in January, prices tend to look less than they were in December and November, because in the winter, less people are buying. Less demand means lower prices. That doesn't mean you're only going to buy properties in January. Like, you're just not going to look all year, and then in January, you're going to look, okay, this is the month where there's not that much competition, so I'm going to go find me a property, right? You're looking all the time. So the first strategy from stock investing that I would apply to real estate is dollar cost averaging. You have a ability to save, you work on your credit score, and every day you are looking for a great deal. If you find a great deal, you buy it. You do not say, I'm going to sit back for 6 months or a year and wait for interest rates to go up higher so that prices will come down. So you're going to pay more because interest rates are higher, and then buy a property. You would miss out on months of principal pay down, months of cash flow, and pay more because the thing that caused prices to come down that reduced the demand was the higher interest rates. So it's costing you more. That's the dollar cost averaging. Save to invest, and invest when you find the great deal. You might not be able to time it where, when I buy his stocks every quarter, I'm going to put $5,000 and buy my index fund. It's not that simple, but it's every day you're doing the work looking for the great deal. Or when the great deal pops up, you won't be ready. You won't know that it happens. Just like with the traders in stocks who want to buy a specific stock. By the time the average person finds out that a stock is great, it's too late. Most of us thought, wow, I really wish I could buy Bitcoin when it was $2 a coin, right? We wish we could buy properties with 2008 prices right now. They're significantly lower than now. But if you talk to anybody between 2009 and 2013, they would all say, oh, I'm glad I didn't buy at the peak. But the people who bought at the peak that were buying properties for a cash-on-cash return and were collecting more rents than what the property cost made more money. Rents went up when property values crashed. So if property values do go down enough for you to be able to buy a property next year, whatever, magically there's just no buyers, which is not likely to happen. Matt's Lumberjack Landlord talked about, you have to pick your lane. Either there's no demand and property values are going to come down, or iBuyers are buying up all the property and investors are taking all the property, so nobody can become a homeowner and get on the property ladder. Both of those arguments are receiving just as much attention. But if there's a bunch of iBuyers and a bunch of investors trying to buy property, where does the demand go away to make the prices come down? The longer you wait to buy property, the more it will cost you. Historically, almost any point in history, except for one crash that we all talk about from 2008, where we currently today don't have almost any of the factors in place except for prices. Everybody that says prices are going up, so properties have to crash, are ignoring the fact that the last time interest rates went up in the 70s, prices over doubled. We had a crash in transactions, which we're seeing now. So less deals will happen. Lenders and agents should develop a side hustle or get really good at their job. But the investor, we are all hoping for the crash. We're hoping for prices to come down, but the thing that can cause prices to come down might be the thing that makes it cost you more money to buy the property at a lower price. Not that hard of math to track. Don't time the market. Like, take a note. Hunt for the great deal every day. It might be 6 months till you find the great deal. But in 6 months, you wouldn't find that great deal if you weren't doing the work every day to find out what is your area average, what is happening with area average rents, what is current interest rates doing, all of the things that actually come into play when it comes to buying a property. And the last thing I'll wrap up with before I get to the questions, and again, like I said, I'm hoping that there's a bunch tonight, and I might have a friend pop in later. Be careful where you get your information from. 99% of the people aren't in the 1%. That's math. Like, it's 100% factual that 99% aren't in the 1%. But almost all of us are only getting our information from the 99%. Who do we work with? Who were we raised by? Who are our educators? Not usually the 1%. We're more able, we have more access now to the information from the 1% than at any point in history. YouTube University, podcasts, audiobooks. You can take in information from people who've done what you want to, not from somebody whose uncle had a bad tenant, so they got out of real estate 10 years ago, and they're still renting, telling you it's not a good time to buy because of XYZ reason. I've talked about this in several videos. There's literally been a reason every single year for the last decade that people have screamed at the top of their lungs, here's why you shouldn't be buying properties. And if I had listened to any of them, this is terrifying. I would still have to work. Yuck. In 5 years, you would still have to work. Yuck. Let's fix that. So be careful where you're getting your information from. Make sure it's somebody who's done what you want to do or doing what you want to do. Kind of like I watch Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord and a couple of other content creators because they invested through the 2008 crash. I didn't. So if you were listening to only my content from only my perspective, I've only invested after 2008 in an up market. So my information would be almost worthless, except I've educated myself based on things that Mike and Matt do. Things like I diversified my tenant base. So I have multiple sources of tenants, 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. I diversify my properties. Instead of owning 110 unit in one area where all my tenants are probably coming from the same economic driver, I have small multifamily like duplexes, triplex, fourplex, more than 10 miles apart in most cases, where I'm drawing tenants from different types of places. So Boeing or Amazon or the base or the port could close down or move away. Interesting, how do you move a port? But if any of those things happen, I still have tenants paying rent. I didn't retire until my financial freedom number was multiplied. It's over 4 times what it cost me to live, almost hitting the 5 times, because it's so weird. Rents go up. Mortgages almost stay the same. Even in a year where we see property taxes and insurance have insurance close to doubled, property taxes went up probably about 20% in my area. Rents went up over 20% across the board at tenants' request. So imagine how much rents are going around here for tenants who didn't ask for it. I had a tenant turnover and that rent went, I have to do the math on this, 1,400 to 1,800. I was going to list it at 2,000. I went to 1,800. What's that? Someone do the math for me. Not a math guy. Funny, not a math guy, but able to know the math that as long as you keep buying real estate and it's a great deal and you're not trying to time the market, you can make work optional in less than 10 years. That's some strong water. Okay, I'm going to get to the comments, and hopefully I'm not going to see 20 people saying, hey, your sound's not working. I did a live stream the other day. I tried to do a live stream the other day. I did 3 because I was just I want to get these subject covered today so people can search them. So if you want to know how to find tenants, how to pay yourself, and the difference between being poor wealthy, middle class wealthy, or wealthy wealthy, those came out the other day. But the first one I went to do, I have a $30 Boya mic that has a cord, works great. I have a $200 Movo mic, which sucks. So that live didn't work. And before I jump into the questions, I'm remembering that last week I did an interview with Tiffany Thomas, your wealth mentor, who has the YouTube channel that is really good. You should check it out. And I talked about giving away her ebook, which means I'm going to buy it and send it to your email as a gift. And so I told everybody in that video that in the comments below, if they would leave a comment saying how many years until you reach financial freedom, that I would then number next to your name. And I thought 10, maybe 20 people would step up. So I have my 20-sided dice that I would roll. But we came close to 60 people. So this is going to be loud. I'm going to mute it for a second. And I'm going to roll to see who won the ebook from Tiffany. 37. So I'll go to those comments later and look at whoever's name had 37 written next to it. And because there was so many, I'm going to give away 2. 24. So 37, 24. I'll go back and find out who that is. But not today. Howdy, Yuri. Dion, how exactly do you check that future tenant has a good credit score, credit history, and didn't have evictions? Is this information readily available? Open. Yes, just did that. Just recently did it, and I'll be doing a review of my Hemlane experience, which was positive, has 1 critique. I was expecting there to be a couple of critiques, but there was really only 1. So Yuri, when you're searching for a tenant, you're going to list your property. You could do it on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. You could do it on all these platforms. But if you use a platform like Apartments.com, Zillow, Hemlane, one of the ones where it's free, you get to list your property. Some of them it's free to collect your rents. They have more services where you can pay a certain amount and advertise it to more people. You can pay a certain amount, and like with Hemlane, and step up to where you're using their system to contact your own handyman, or their system to contact their handyman, or you can use their highest tier program and actually have leasing agents go out and sign leases. But just for the free services on most of the platforms and the first tier of Hemlane, it's free to you for Zillow, Apartments.com, and Hemlane has a small fee monthly. You can get a discount on Hemlane if you put Dion in the comments when you sign up. It's like a promotion code. The application, when the tenant fills out an application, has a cost. So Apartments.com, it was $45. Cozy, it was $39. I'm not sure what Zillow's is, but they have a fee. Hemlane has a fee. The tenant, or the application person applying to be a tenant, fills out the application and turns that in to them. Hemlane, Zillow, Apartments.com runs the credit, sends you a credit score. You have to verify who you are. You have to agree to all of I won't share this information. I won't post it on social media. You'll follow all the rules of knowing someone's credit history and credit score. You also get a criminal background check and an eviction history. California has some weird rules. So a lot of the platforms have a box that says, are you in California? Because if you are, we can't help you. So if you're in California, you might have to figure out what maybe they share less in California than the full thing, because the tenants that I had 3 applications turned in. The first one didn't qualify. Credit score was too low. The second one did an application, but then when they got to the place, decided it was too far. I would have looked at Google Maps before I would have spent the money on an application. And the third one is moving in 4 days from now, something like that, before the end of the month. But you get their full credit score, credit history, eviction report, and criminal background. Make sure you know in your area, some places you're not allowed to use criminal history as a determining factor as to whether you rent to someone or not. So in most places, it's first come, first serve, the first qualified applicant who applies, so that you're not discriminating and saying, I like a younger couple more than an older single person, or I like a single parent more than I like whatever. But try not to have any of that be a part of the decision of choosing your tenant. You should have set criteria that you can articulate in a few sentences that is the same for everybody. For me, it's I've never looked or cared at income. I want a 700 or higher credit score. Someone who's worked to protect their credit that high is not going to, and in 10 years, I've never had a later missing payment, so it's working for me. And no evictions ever. Even if they had an eviction in 1960, I wouldn't want them on my property. And so that's my criteria. The rest of it, I don't care age, I don't care marital status, I don't care if it's roommates, as long as everybody meets the criteria. So I'm consistent across the board. Howdy, Mickle. When you say 5% for vacancies to vacancies, do you continually say that, or do you save that 5% until you have 1 or 2 months of vacancies saved up? How many units did you have when you found you can save your entire check for your next down payment? 2 questions. Let me start with the first one. Thank you for questions. Those are good questions. So far, we've only had a couple, and these are good questions to start this with. So I appreciate this. So I set aside 5% for vacancies, 10% for repairs and maintenance. So I'm technically, when I buy a property and running my cash on cash return, setting aside 15%. Always, forever, when I buy a property, I'm looking at that no matter how much I had in reserves. I want to know that this asset by itself is self-sustaining. So I have another asset that's producing 5,000% cash on cash return. This one over here that I'm looking at buying, I'm still going to look at what the cash on cash return is if I set aside 15% for repairs and vacancy. When I had 7 units or less, I let my reserves go up to $10,000. Once I hit 10,000, that 15% that you would be setting aside, I stopped setting it aside into the reserve account. I didn't then add that to my spending. So I'm not increasing my lifestyle by 15%, because if the reserve ever dipped down, that 15% has to go into that account. I want to make sure my life is not impacted by emergency repairs and a rental. Cash flow is not impacted by problems or expenses. The money you're setting aside is. So that 15% went into the investing fund, which meant I might invest in the next property a little faster, but it wasn't impacting the way I could live my life. When I got above 7 units, since more things than one can happen at a time, I raised it to 30,000. Up to 16 units, I had $30,000 in the reserve account. Still, but looking at properties, I would say 15% would be set aside up until 30. Over 30, that amount goes into the investing fund, just like when I was at 10. This was while I was working and had a W-2. When I stopped my W-2 last month, July, I raised it to 50,000. I have 50,000 in the reserve that I just don't touch, don't invest, don't do anything with, because that's my swan account. I could sleep well at night because that money's sitting in there. The 15% of all of the properties is still going into the fund for investing, even though I don't have a W-2 and I've reached financial freedom. I don't need the money to live my life. So it's growing. I will buy more properties, not because I need to, just because I want to do something with the money. And more cash flow doesn't hurt. Then you had a second part to your question. So it was 7 units when I was making more money than when I was a police officer. And I'll quickly break it down. I owned a single family house, moved into an apartment and rented out the house for 2 years to get rental income on my tax returns. Then I was able to buy a duplex because I had low income, high debt to income ratio. Like it was just in a bad situation to buying a house. But 2 years of rental income on your tax returns kind of eliminates that if you're buying small multifamily, because 75% of all of your rents, even the one you're buying, can count on your debt to income ratio to make it easier to buy the next property. So I bought the duplex. 2 years later to buy another duplex. Income snowball starts to kick in because the duplexes are cash flowing. I've reduced my living expense. The house is cash flowing. Then I bought one more duplex about 1.5 years later. So that's one house and 3 duplexes. So I had 4 properties. I focused because at this point in time, you were allowed to have 4 mortgages in your name. So up until like 2012 to 2016 or so, you can have 4. After 2016, they said, hey, you can have 10. So I was working towards 10. Didn't get there. Financial freedom happened way longer before that. Much sooner before that. Disappointment in my grammar. So 7 units, paid off the house. So the cash flow from the house and the units I was profiting $2,700 a month. And when I was a police officer, my paycheck was $1,300 every 2 weeks. So $2,600 a month. So I could technically live on the money from just 7 units, which was 4 properties. I wouldn't call $2,700 a month, although I didn't have a mortgage. So I was also house hacking. So I could have moved out of that unit and increased it by another $1,500. So what would that have been? 37, 42, $4,200 a month coming. I could probably live on that pretty comfortably. That's less than it costs me to live, but I'm still house hacking. It's addicting living for free, getting paid to live where I'm at. Yeah, so that was about 7 units to where I could, all of the money from the rentals covered everything, and every penny made from work and side hustles was funneled into the investing fund, which the income snowball happened and greatly sped up things. To the point where when I was working the last couple of years, I was saving 100% of W-2 income and probably close to 80% of rental income. I did the math a few times and I thought it was about 65%, but looking back at what I was actually spending, even on the months where I took trips, 20% of rental income is more than what it cost me to live. Howdy, Tom. Howdy, Michelle. Well, Dion, looking at either financing to get my single family or short-term SFHR sold. Okay. Still exploring what I want to do to max the investment channels that you can recommend to learn more from seller perspective, selling the properties. I don't know too many people. I know Zuber has sold in 1031. I know Matt the Lumberjack Landlord has done that. I've actually never sold a property. I do know that if I was going to sell, cash out refinance, or take out a home equity line of credit, my first thing to learn was where would I deploy the funds? Where would I get the best return? So I think if you're watching the Three Amigos and Millennial Mike and people who are currently investing, I think you're getting the right information to just put the money to work. I would definitely talk to a tax professional. If you're looking at doing a 1031, looking at seller financing to get your, so you're looking at selling with seller financing, so probably not 1031 because you're not going to have a big capital gains hit. That's a good question. I would probably, for those questions, I would go to the One Rental at a Time and Matt the Lumberjack live streams and ask them questions. And both of them are actually pretty good at answering emails too. So doesn't sound like you're in a bad position. Glad you're here too, Tom. And Michelle, you want to be careful and protect yourself. Absolutely. Especially on the first couple of deals. That tends to be when we make our biggest mistake. So you're doing the right thing, thinking, how do you self-educate? What sources would you go to get the information? And those are the 2 that I would go to for that. Pace Morby has so he does Gator lending and he focuses on buying seller financing. I don't know if he focused on that, but if that would be a good option too. I know that Kris Krohn with a K, Kris with a K, Krohn with a K, Krohn, something like that. His strategy was to buy properties, keep them for about 7 years, and then try to sell to the tenant so that you would not have the tenant issues, not have to maintain the property, get more than what the rent would be. So Kris Krohn might be another one to look for that strategy, but that's mostly, so it's still seller financing, but it's mostly, what do they call it? Rent to own, that strategy. Definitely a concern since the IRS is growing. Howdy, Angie. Tom, Michelle, which state is the property? Bellevue, Washington. I would, it's in King County, right? I would sell it to. Indy. Howdy, Dividend Dave. Howdy. One more meetup for you to come to before you take off. Howdy, Bill. Matt Bittner. Howdy. How much rental income is that lady who bought 3 properties making? I'm referring to the lady who was in a video you posted recently. So it's Tiffany Thomas, your wealth mentor. I'm not sure about her income, but she does rent by the room and house hacked. So it's a lot more than you would expect to make off of 3 rentals if you were just renting with lease per unit. I know Todd Baldwin does the rent by the room strategy. I will have to reach out to Tiffany and ask if she's willing to share what she makes. Some people do. I'm absolutely transparent with numbers. I know that Zuber and the Lumberjack don't like to share numbers because they are huge. And when you share big numbers, people think it's unattainable. So they focus on get to 4. If you can get to 4 properties, your life changes, which it does. So I like their strategy. Luckily, I'm still small enough to share the numbers and it's attainable. So I will reach out to her and find out. Howdy, Laura. Thanks for hanging out. Loco Eddie, howdy. Finally got an offer accepted, closing in September and making the current my rental. Any suggestions on what steps to take from here? I am doing a video next week on you just closed on a property. This is what you do. So step by step, here's the Cliff Notes version that hasn't been researched or put into a correct chronological order yet. Contact your, like I said, this is not in the right order. So you're going to do all these things in the order that makes sense to you. Reach out to your electric company, gas company, and put in landlord policies. So you're going to move out. It's still in your name. Tenant's going to take over. So the tenant will have the problem of utilities, right? If they move out in a year, you want power at the place. You don't want the place freezing in the winter. You don't want your handyman going there to do something and they don't have power to run anything. So the landlord policy means that if the service ever stops because the tenant moves out, it automatically goes into your name and you start getting a bill. Set it up on auto payment so you can't forget it. So that's one of the first things. Second thing, do you have your leases yet? Do you have that in place? Have you got that? I would reach out. You might not have to retain them, but find out if there's a good attorney in your area that's local to your court system. And what I did is I retained the attorney and asked them if there was any specific verbiage that they would like on my leases that will make their job easier to do if we ever have to go through with an eviction. And they gave me a paragraph to put in my leases because your attorney in your area will know your court system and what needs to be in there. So utilities, attorney, got your lease. How are you going to advertise the property? Are you going to use Apartments, Zillow? Are you going to go to Hemline and use 30 different places at the click of one button, which was the great aspect of it? Know what your criteria is. How are you going to screen tenants? What's going to matter to you? Do you care about income? Do you care about credit score? Do you care about criminal history, evictions? Learn your local laws on what you're allowed to screen for. Maybe reach out to your housing authority, or if you're in an area where there could possibly be a nonprofit that runs the voucher system in your area, so find out and get your place registered. Start the process now. Have it inspected. That doesn't mean you have to run to Section 8. It just means that you could accept a Section 8 voucher. Some areas, it's a requirement to provide that service. I'm not sure what states those are. In Washington, it's voluntold. You can go and do it if you want to. You don't have to. I know that it does take a few weeks to get that set up, so I would start doing that now, even while you live there. They're going to send an inspector. They're going to make sure each room that you're calling a bedroom qualifies as a bedroom. They're going to make sure all the outlets work, the doors and windows all function properly. Anything that's safety concern should be taken care of. Doesn't hurt to have it inspected. The first thing, well, so like I said, this is not chronologically correct because I haven't researched the video yet. I've got notes, but I haven't put it into. This will make sense when it's done in the video. You want to contact your insurance rep because generally, well, so far, every time for me, your insurance will go down when you move out of your property because you have homeowners insurance on the property. Some agencies will talk you into getting a landlord policy, which will then cover lost rent. So it costs more, but I don't get that coverage because I'm never going to make an insurance claim unless the place burns to the ground or someone falls and breaks their neck and has a several $100,000 injury. Because your insurance can double and no one else can insure you for 5 years if you have an insurance claim on one of your properties. And I don't want to deal with that. So I have the highest deductibles possible, but you're insuring the property with homeowners insurance. So a set amount for injury and an amount to replace the property. That stays the same whether you live there or you don't. If you live on a property, they also insure your personal items. So your insurance where you're living has that added expense. An example is my duplex was almost $900 a month. When I moved out, it dropped to 400 and something. So almost half of the insurance because I don't live there anymore. So let your insurance know that you're moving to the new place. Make sure you've lived in your first house for more than a year. If you have an owner-occupied loan, that could be an issue. But if you're closing, you've already talked with your lender and that's all working out good. So there will be a lot more detail in that video when it comes out. So look forward to that within a week. I look forward to doing that too, because that's the one thing, and I really like about Matthew Lumberjack Landlord's channel is he's making a course on something like, oh crap, or you're a landlord now, what next? Like all the things you do after you're a landlord. That should be a good course. Howdy, Kip. Rob, howdy. Matt, howdy. Is that same lady living entirely off her 3 rentals? So she could live entirely off her 3 rentals, but she has a YouTube channel, which probably makes, she has more subscribers than me, but I think she gets less views. So she's probably making about $500 a month from YouTube. She might have some affiliate links. She has a course, she has a book. So she does have some side hustle income, but she doesn't have a W-2 and she hasn't for over 4 years. At least that's what I remember. It was like 2018. And that's 2 people on my channel so far who retired with 3 rentals. I actually did a deal deep dive early on where there was a person basically retiring with 1, but it had like 5 rentals on the 1 property. And they were adding some RV pads, I think. Loco Eddie, any suggestions on specific requirements for renters to be included in the lease? Or perhaps a video that you or the 3 amigos have made about the process? I don't know that any of us have done a specific thing about leases because a lot of those are state specific on what you can even put in the lease. I know I would get my lease locally. So like if you have a BiggerPockets Pro membership, you can get a lease made for each state by an attorney. Some states like Washington used to, but doesn't now, had a landlord tenant resource page that had a lease made for the local area that had what was required. Local property management companies might have a good lease. Investors in the area might have a good lease. But I would look through it and make sure it covers things that aren't always covered in leases, like no water beds, no trampolines. And then sections where you can actually write in things specific to the property. A definition of the area of the yard that tenant's responsible for, something like that. I don't know of any specific videos, but I think that should be a good 3 amigos video for this week, which we'll be doing on Thursday. Howdy, Don. Howdy, Rip. John, Texas. Howdy. Hey, Dion, you've talked about this before, but could you go over how you search for insurance for your rentals, coverages, deductibles, liability? Thanks. I just did a Cliff Notes version of that. But how did I search? So I contacted a broker, so somebody who will hunt through several agencies to find you your insurance. But I also call and get quotes from the major ones, from Farmers, Allstate, Geico, just name some of the big ones. Get a couple quotes to figure out. It's generally the same for a house, a small multifamily in your area in most states, unless you're in a place like Florida where the elevation of your house can dictate a huge difference in flood insurance. Is there wetlands on your property? Do you have to have earthquake insurance? So there's some other things that can be different to specific locations. But I do that once or twice to get kind of a basic feel for homeowner insurance. But then I really watch. For the last 3 years, homeowner insurance was pretty much consistent, didn't change much. And then this last year, it went up close to double on price. So whatever's happening in that industry, it sucks. And that's how I find it. I do the highest deductibles possible because I don't want to do a claim unless I absolutely have to. Like I said, burn down, serious injury. That's what my reserves are for. Keeps the insurance cost down, but it stops me from making a claim because I have a low deductible that could double my insurance rates on all your properties and make it to where for 5 years, no one else can insure you. I did 300,000 injury. And then once I had 4 properties, and I probably could have done this at 3, I got an umbrella insurance policy for $2 million, which for several years cost me about $550. It's almost $700 now. So it's gone up also with the other insurance raises. The one thing that is interesting about an umbrella policy is some companies that offer umbrella policies will require that your homeowner insurance, your car, and your umbrella are all with the same provider, which means at least one of your properties, if you have more, because you have rentals, it doesn't have to be all of them. It's just one of them, property, car, and umbrella are listed with one. Make sure you verify all that with your insurance representative when you're getting the policy that you choose. they required a higher coverage amount on vehicle for injury than what the state required to get the umbrella policy. So make sure you ask all of those questions. So if I get this umbrella, how does that impact vehicle? How does that impact my homeowner insurance? And what are your requirements? And then shop around. Price means something too. Read reviews. Look for if they've got a super cheap price, but if you can find 10 reviews where they wouldn't cover a policy that they should have, or an incident where they should have, then I'd probably move on to the one that costs a little more. North Colorado Don, howdy. Ace, howdy. Stopping by to say what's up. Catch you on the playback, bro. Thanks for everything. Thanks, Ace. Make sure you put it to 1.5 speed because through quicker. Dewey, howdy. Why is my screen doing that? What do you think about renting through Section 8? I have a couple videos on my channel about Section 8. The first thing to think is it's not low-income housing. It's fixed income housing. So a lot of people have a negative opinion of Section 8 because they think low-income housing, and low-income housing means you have to make less than a certain amount. If you make more, you can lose the benefit. So some people are in jobs where they're trying not to make more money because they don't want to lose the benefit. And they're usually in really bad areas, that low-income housing. That's why they were able to build there. Section 8 housing can be in a gated community. They pay the area average rent. Joe Asamoah, who's been on BiggerPockets a few times, invests in Washington, D.C. and gets over $5,000 a month per place on Section 8. I have a strategy of using about 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, and 1/3 of working or retired. So something like a pandemic, a stock market crash, or a prolonged government shutdown isn't going to impact my entire portfolio. So I use it as a diversification strategy. I have used my binder strategy that gets the tenants to request the rent to go up. I've used that with Section 8. They told me in email, $1,800 was the most they could pay for that property. And I showed them comps at 23, 24. They said, we'll take 22 because that was what I was asking for. So they raised it $400 a month just because I did the work for them. So there's a lot of strategies to Section 8, and it's very local specific. The county level is where the voucher program is usually run. There might be some large places where there's big cities and they might have, subdivided. Like if you're in Chicago, it's probably not just one agency handling the whole county, just guessing. I invest in Pierce County, Washington, and Thurston County, Washington. Pierce County, Washington Section 8 program can F the F off way over to F off land over there. I will never deal with them. They suck. Thurston County is amazing, communicative, supportive. They're trying to make it work. So figure out in the area that you invest, how hard or easy is it to work with your housing authority? And I say housing authority because in most of the places I've interacted with, the voucher program is run by the housing authority. There are some counties where a nonprofit, so the name could be completely random, just Google voucher program for your county. Is the nonprofit or your housing authority good to work with, or do they suck? Because it's entirely possible it goes both ways. I don't think it's as big as 50-50. I'm a very small control group to figure out, only investing in 2 counties. So let me know how it goes locally for you. But your property attracts the type of tenant. You have a crap hole. You're going to get a crap hole tenant if you have Section 8 or not Section 8. You have a Class C or a B or an A area, you're going to get that type of tenant. I've not had any problems with Section 8 tenants because they have a benefit they can lose, and the waiting list, if you're able to re-qualify, is about 5 years. And so not only am I going to want the place kept very nice, but they are going to be inspected by the state. Like someone else is going to walk through, and yes, they might have the place look bad. You should point it out. Kip, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you, Dion, for all you give back. Love your content weekly with you and the Three Amigos. Thank you. I actually really like working with the Three Amigos. It's 3 completely different perspectives. Mike is super educated. Matt, super smart. Very different. They're both growing huge portfolios that generate, like a machine, more investing. I wanted freedom, and their strategies helped me. Their knowledge helped me get to the idea of I can make work optional. I think there are some very educated people out there like Mike who would like to do what he's done. And there's some very smart people out there like Matt who would like to do what he's done. There are, don't take this personally, some really lazy people out there who would like to do what I've done. Lazy is a powerful motivator. And the idea that I never have to work again made investing for 10 years really easy. Like that light at the end of the tunnel was like sunlight coming through the clouds. So thanks, Kip. I appreciate that. Let's see if I can find my spot. There we go. How many offers? So, Rob, how many offers are you making in your market a week? Is that number going up? The lazy kicked in, retiring kicked in. It's been a month of, actually today I'm making an offer today. So last week, I don't think I made any. The week before, I don't, and it's mostly because I wasn't doing the work. Do the work daily, right? I'm hunting for the next property, but I'm also trying to adjust to this idea of how do you spend money when for 12 years you've saved to invest every day. So I'm trying to figure that out. There is a lot of inventory. So I'm actually looking forward, and I talked about this in a video earlier this week, where I want to sit down and actually start doing my at least 30 minutes a day to go through and just start looking through for deals. I'm watching days on market. I'm going to make, like today, there's a property that the comps for this are a bit higher. So there's probably a red flag I'm missing. Deal breakers would be, there's an HOA, needs a full rehab. I'm not looking for that. I don't want to do a BRRRR. I like to buy rent ready or already occupied properties. I don't want to do short sale or foreclosure because I don't want to deal with a lending institution that could take up to a year and tie my stuff up. It's not happening really fast like it did in 11 and 12 when they were trying to get rid of stuff. So I haven't looked for that yet, but I'm going to watch it. If it's on the market for 5 days, it's been on for 2. If it's on for 5, I'm going to make an offer at a number even more ridiculous than their list price, lower. That makes sense to me. So I'm not making a lot of offers, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. I've actually just been lazy. And on the path to financial freedom, I don't think I had a 2-week period where I was lazy. Having retired and weirdly not working, but watching my accounts have more money in them than I had before while I'm not working, that's weird. And I'm hoping to bring all of you to that same point or push you farther into it. Howdy, Austin. Rob, what yield are you targeting? So I was looking for 10% or better cash on cash return, always calculating the same, setting aside 5% for repairs and maintenance and vacancy. Inventory got really tight over the last year. And I thought, so my last time I closed on a property was May 2021. So I like to buy one every year now, if not every other year from before that. I'm not trying to have 100 units like Zuber and Matt. I might sell a property and take the money and pay off a couple of the mortgages. Not that it's the most financially smart thing to do, but because the cash flow is more than I need and I don't need more work, I'm not trying to add more properties. I had to get to enough properties to where the cash flow was 4 or 5 times what it cost me to live so that I can retire and with confidence knowing I'll never have to work again. I'm not investing to grow a machine of buy the next investment. It is okay to be lazy. It is okay to have a goal of financial freedom. Like I said, different perspectives, all of them come together and give you options on what's going to work best for you. So I'm still looking for a 10%, although if I was really hunting for a property earlier this year, I might have lowered it to 8% because inventory was really slim. And what I like to do is take your area average of what you're finding. So 80% of all deals are going to lose money. So you can find those, you can identify them, get them out. If 20% that are probably okay, decent deals, what would they get? That yield is probably in my area used to be 6 to 8% for the last year, up until interest rates went up enough to finally slow demand to where inventory can pile up. I might have found, so at 6 to 8%, I was looking for 10. yield dropped to 4 to 6%, I was going to start looking for 8s. Now with as much inventory, and remember, don't compare someone's year 10 to your year 1. If the average in your area is 4% and you can find a 5%, that to me would be a great deal. It doesn't have to be the big spread. When you get to having enough properties to where the cash flow is more than it costs you to live, you can hunt for great deals and say, nope, this is not a word. I want greater deals, and add a couple of on the end of there. So that's how I'm working that now. Melvin, howdy. And students, thank you. Cody, howdy. As always, I've heard that your next deal is usually, if not always, better than the last. Good point. How true has that been for you? And if so, how so? So the point of this video is don't time the market. There have been some times where, because of the way the market was going, I've had some deals that became great. Purchased a duplex in 2018 when interest rates were really high, 2020, refinanced. It was purchased with 2 bedrooms on each side, but each side had a den, so 3 bedrooms each side. I mean, the cash on cash return on that thing is currently now like 40% per year based on when I bought it. So doesn't suck. Shooting for 10% that first year, ended up getting there. They're better because the fear factor goes away. Like on those first 2 or 3, my brain was like, I'm paying for an inspection. This is like $500 or $600 on a property I might not buy. This is stupid. I'm paying for an appraiser. I'm giving somebody money hoping that they tell me what I'm trying to buy is expensive enough for me to buy it. Like in those first few years, I get it. I thought that this was the dumbest thing I'm ever doing. And now I look at it, I'm like, nope, I want the inspection because that's going to be my negotiation tool to get the price to come down. It's going to find me the things I might not want to buy. I want the appraisal to come in a little low so I can negotiate. If it comes in at or above, great. At least a trained professional agreed, and my lending was super easy. Like all of that fear became, this is stupid too. Yep, that's just part of today. That's kind of what makes it easier. Every single property I've purchased, there's been something new, something different, something weird to work out. And I'm looking forward to the next one because it'll surprise you. Finding and screening tenants, understanding area average rents got easier, getting better at the binder strategy, because in the first 4 or 5 years of me investing, I didn't have a binder strategy. I had, what does everyone else do? Let me find out. And it seemed like everyone I talked to at rents sucked. Property management companies, we just tell them what it is. Well, of course they do. They want tenant turnover. Every time someone leaves a property, the property management company makes money off the tenant turnover. Your skills, no one can take away from you. The one mistake I think that happens as investors invest for a while, or even educate and get that analysis paralysis, is they start trying to use the crystal ball and think, I'm going to make this decision based on what I think is going to happen in 6 months. I have determined that 1 cup of water is not enough for a 3-hour live stream. Water makes my eyes water. So you get better, your team gets better. And in those first few years also, we're, most of us, not always, I have a leaky sink. Let me go work it out. I've got a leaky hose going to the hot water heater. Let me go work it out. I've got a fence that's falling down. Let me go work on that. And now I'm like, why are you texting me? You have the handyman's number. He'll bill me. like that. That's the other day I had a leak at a unit. Tenant calls, sends a video. It's under the sink. It's this line right here. I forward that video to the handyman. Goes over there. That was probably like a couple $100. In the beginning, $200 to fix a leaky sink, I would have had a heart attack. But now I'm like, this is my goof off day. And I had, out of 24 hours, I had to spend 3 minutes sending this text to the handyman and then sending a Venmo payment that the tenant paid for. Because remember, 15% of gross rents are getting set into an account to pay for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. The idea of financial freedom isn't being frugal, and it isn't doing everything yourself. My brother, who I love, And I look up to him in several ways. One, he's a little bit older. Two, he's a lot taller. And three, he's got way more skills than I do. But he's doing the roof. He did the roof on a rental like a month ago. He's doing the roof on his own primary now. He's like, nope, roofers suck. They don't do it good enough. And they always brag about how fast they are. And fast means you're going to make a mistake. And he's like, I could do it right. And I'm like, I'll pay a pro. And they got a warranty. Tenants are paying me to have that done anyways. Anyway, yeah. So I think that's one of the things that makes you get better and better is your team gets better, your expectations get better, your ability to find deals. And it used to be, look at a property. Okay, what are the rents in that area? Is that area one I want to invest in? So now I know the areas in the 2 counties I invest. I don't have to think that way. I just know the areas I want to avoid. I know the rents. I keep track of those because I want to know why rents are competitive. Staying on top of interest rates is a challenge because lenders change often. But it's really easy compared to when you're in that self-education stage in the beginning. Everything is stressful. And I've said this a lot in my earlier videos. The first time you do something in real estate, it's terrifying. The second time, it feels like you could teach a course. Legacy. Howdy. What's up? Tell me about your logo on my shirt. Have you seen Office Space? So it's a red swing line stapler, which I actually have here on my desk. But it says jobs instead of swing line, and TPS is so I could have TPS reports when I was running the nonprofit. But when I worked at the truck driving school, I founded a nonprofit. You could check it out at hiddenjobs.org. It still exists. We help people find jobs, or they do, because I've now retired. I'm still wearing the shirts. My shirts. I developed this. Come try to tear it off me. That'd be fun. But in Washington state, there's a little over 6,000 registered transportation companies. And most people know about trucking companies. They think of driver. They forget HR, IT, operations, logistics, forklift mechanic, like all the warehouse and office jobs that it'll never touch the truck. The idea for our nonprofit was we help people find non-driving jobs for free. And I'm going to say we, because I've been doing it for 10 years. So you can contact hiddenjobs.org, go in, send an email. The trucking companies we work with are nationwide, so we can help you find a job in any state, in some other countries too. And we don't charge a penny. The idea is local trucking companies don't hire out of CDL schools. So most CDL schools train people to go over the road. This is my secret sauce behind the scenes, what made me the company president and got me demoted all the way down to that position. If we place HR people and dispatchers and operations managers and safety coordinators and IT professionals with a trucking company, who do you think they're going to hire their drivers from? So our school went from 6 staff with 1 location to 60 staff with 5 locations. We blew up, became the largest CDL school in the state by like 1,200%. So that's the logo on my shirt. It goes to a nonprofit that doesn't make any money. It just helps people find jobs. But because it exists, the commercial driver school in Washington state can help you find a job. It's weird that I stopped working there. And I've talked about this, so I'll make this a really quick segue. Some people are really lucky and they hate their job. And you invest, you reach financial independence, maybe not financial freedom, but financial independence, which happens first. And they quit. And they're like, F you guys, I'm out of here. I love my job. I got to play in trucks like they were go-karts. I got to use simulators. I invited Beth Traverso over to bring her kids and drive a school bus around and play in the simulators. Like I could just do all that kind of stuff. I was helping people get a CDL to get local driving jobs. So they don't have to go over the road because of the nonprofit. The nonprofit, I was helping people get jobs. So literally I got to go into work every day and just say, how can I help you fix your life? Like I get to help people. Best job ever. I was unfortunate because I loved my job. So I reached financial independence in 2018, worked for 4 more years. It took 4 years for time freedom to win out over golden handcuffs and a job that I liked. Yeah. Daniel, howdy. Your rent went up 23%. So the rent for my tenants went up between 20 and 28%. They asked for it. They requested, they said, can our rent please go from $1,150 to $1,460? Would you do that for us? That's literally how the conversation went. So there's a couple of videos on my channel called The Minder Strategy. If you watch those, it'll show you how to you get your tenants to ask for a rent increase. thank you. And happy tenants don't trash a property, and happy tenants don't leave. In 12 years of investing now, I have 16 units now. I've had 4 total tenant turnovers, and 2 of them in the last 2 months. One bought a house, one moved away. Happy tenants don't leave, and they ask for the rent to go up. Jesse, howdy, good work. Wombat Striker, howdy. I would say that the type of real estate investing you and pretty much all of the people on this channel do is more like buying an individual stock than dollar cost averaging, looking every day, but not buying until the deal makes sense. It's not really DCA. DCA is generally buying on a fixed time interval, no matter what the market is doing. Mostly, I would agree with what you said about the stock stuff. Other than that, though, so you're right. Dollar cost averaging would be a fixed amount invested every time. The reason I was associating it with dollar cost averaging is you buy when you find the good deal. You're not predicting what's going to happen in the future. You do not care about 6 months from now or a year from now, because there has never been a time when someone knew what was going to happen in 6 months and made a decision. There have been people who've tried a bunch of things and one of them worked out and they looked really smart. But anybody right now, anybody. So this is a hit against me, Michael Zuber, lumberjack landlord, millennial Mike, real estate mindset, like anybody saying, this is what you should do. We can't do that. We don't know your starting position. We don't know your resources, your assets, your goals, your timeline. We don't know all of that. We could say, here's what worked for us and what we're doing. And anyone who is saying, you better buy now because in a year it's going to suck, it's going to be way worse, or anybody saying you should wait a year to buy is making a mistake. My opinion is everybody should be saying every single day, like you were dollar cost average, you're spending your time instead of the money every single day. Look for the great deal. When you find the great deal, whether it's now or in 6 months, you buy it. Don't time the market. You buy the one that makes sense now. Cash flows from day one, not betting for appreciation, not hoping rates go up, not hoping prices come down, not hoping prices go up or rates go down. All of that doesn't matter. Can you find a place that will cash flow based on current data? What is my current interest rate? What is the price that I can get it accepted at? What's happening with area rents right now? That's why I was saying dollar cost averaging. Do the work every day. Like you were doing the stock investing every day, you're investing the time instead of the money. Because if you don't find a great deal, don't buy a crappy one. So that's where it really is different than dollar cost averaging. I know that when things cost more, you're just buying less. When they cost less, you're buying more. That's the point for dollar cost averaging. In real estate, it's just whenever you find a great deal, you buy it. So hopefully I didn't offend anybody that I just named saying we shouldn't be telling you what to do. As far as buy now or buy in 6 months, I'm saying we should be saying hunt for the great deal. When you find it, buy it. If you are not hunting every day, you aren't going to find it. In 6 months, when somebody says, all right, I took 6 months out, I'm going to jump back into the market, there will be a reason telling you to wait another 6 months. There has been one for a decade, every year. Good point, though. And you're right. I started with the caveat of, I don't know anything about stocks, so I'm going to make a weak association here. Keith, you were 37. Cool. So I'll look that up. And then somebody else was 24. Mike, howdy. My question is this. I have a tenant who owes me 3 months rent. Ouch. She was just approved for Section 8, which will pay her rent from now on. However, it won't pay her back rent. Let her go. Good question. So they owe you 3 months back rent. Section 8 is now approved. So you're going to get rent going forward. Can you work out a payment plan with the tenant to get that money back? So see if I can say this without being heartless. A lot of this depends on the area that you're investing in, Mike. What are their rules on tenant evictions? Is it you can just say we're not renewing your contract? Can you say we don't accept Section 8? Can you say you owe us this money unless you pay, you're being evicted? So for me, I haven't had to. After the first year, I would have done this in the first year. I should have got it now. If somebody was late, you start the eviction process the day it happens. You can work out something where you don't go through with it. You don't have to have the attorney file it. You give the 3-day pay or quit. You do whatever's local in your area is acceptable. Because sometimes that tenant can go get rent relief if they have documented proof that they're behind on their rent. So you want to start the timeline. You can choose to not follow through. But it gives them the strength to take that to, because one of the first things here in Washington State, if you go through an eviction, is you have to notify the tenant. Here are the resources you can use to go get this rent caught up, which I think is a great thing. And I will put away the dice. So I don't know if I would get rid of them because you have the money coming in now. See if you can work out a payment plan. And if not, how was the interaction with the tenant? This is where we are human. And you can't discriminate, but if somebody was a jerk to you, jerk is not a protected class. It would make it a lot easier. So here's definitely an overshare because this makes me sound like a jerk, I think. I purchased a fourplex, owner occupied, had 4 tenants in place. 2 were on long leases, 2 were on short leases. So I pretty much had 2 tenants that I had to pick from. The first one lied to me, said they were the property manager and were renting at a reduced rate. I got the rent rolls from the owner. Rents were always paid the right amount. So they were trying to tell me they got a rent deal that didn't exist. The other tenants were great. No problems. Very easy decision for me to go, that guy lied to me. You're the one I'm kicking out. I chose the one I'm kicking out, which makes me a jerk. I did cash for keys, paid the deposit on the place they were moving, tried to make it as easy as possible. But how the person dealt with you can, in some ways, tell you how to respond back. So what was that interaction like would be what would help me. Was it you, Tom? Let me know. Keith, howdy. Clinton, howdy. Have you ever ran the numbers yield on your whole portfolio? Yes. I did a couple times. One time I was trying to figure out what came first, $1 million in net worth or $1 million in debt. Take a guess in the comments. Let me know what you think. What happened first for me? $1 million in debt or $1 million net worth? And I love it. I need to make a video on this. A lot of people say, how can you have a net worth that's positive if you have debt? Not understanding how net worth works, which is technically an irrelevant number that doesn't mean anything because you can't eat net worth. You can eat cash flow because it buys the things that you're going to eat, but net worth doesn't. So I've looked at the portfolio recently. I just ran the numbers. I say recently, it's probably been 5 months because I was looking at a DSCR loan, which is the first time I had to grow up and do a personal financial statement. So it was, what is the estimated value of all the properties? What is the debt on all the properties? What is the cash flow? And I'm averaging over a 20% cash on cash return across the board because the first year I shoot for 10%. Most of them got between 10 and 12%. I had one started at 17. It's probably my best first year purchase. But by year 2 or 3, when I've made things like the binder strategy has happened, 2-bedroom became 3-bedroom by adding a wall and a door, refinance to a better rate. A couple of those things that happened that increased the cash flow hugely. That's what my overall portfolio looks like right now. And I've actually run the numbers for some videos where from my W-2, I've invested in over 10 years, about $320,000. About $300,000 was invested from rental profit. So total, I've invested about $620,000, $320 for me. Cash flow per year this year, which is going to be higher because I had 2 tenant turnovers and rents went up, was projected at being $168,000. But now it's actually going to be more than that. 320 invested, 160,000 in cash flow. Not too hard to do the math on what the return there is. Another reason why real estate looked attractive to me instead of stocks, because to get using the 4% rule, which was invented by somebody and then later studied in the Trinity study. I have to remember the name of the person who actually did the 4% rule, came up with it. But the Trinity study did a decades-long study of the 4% rule. You would have to have like $3 or $4 million invested to get $168,000 that you can live on per year. That's a lot of money. And that was making that much. Go. Thank you. You're welcome. Daniel, howdy. Since you only have one checking and one saving account, how do you separate your repair fund from your investing fund mentally? There is 50, there was 10, then 30, now $50,000 in my account that I don't go below. It doesn't have to be that complicated. All of the money that is not being used for living above that goes into the investing fund. So that grows faster. I've never had a year where I've used up 15% of gross rents on repairs, even on years where I did roofs. Don't overthink it. Just in your head, how much do you have a checking account, right? Oh, you probably have a checking account, even if you've never owned a real estate rental property. There are people who go right down to zero. And sometimes a little bit further, and then a couple things happen at $36 in a event, so it goes into far negative. Some people go, okay, so zero is zero, but I'm going to never go below 100. So in my checking account, there's $100. I never go below. And then there's other people who go, okay, $1,000 in my checking account. I will run above that, so that if I ever do go below my thing, I'm at 900 positive instead of bouncing checks or bouncing ATM whatever's right. Mentally, there's an amount in my checking I never go below. For me, it's in the checking account, it's like 15,000 because I have like 8,000 in mortgages that go out every month, and I want to make sure there's money in there for that. And then in the savings, there's an earmarked 50,000 that is my emergency fund. So when I'm looking at, okay, I want to buy a property, there's X amount of dollars in my account, 50,000 of those reserve. What's left is what my investing for down payment, closing costs, and immediate repairs to buy the next property. The 50,000 of my reserves does satisfy the reserve that the lender is going to require. So it's actually got a use beyond the sleep well at night, and it's there if I ever needed it. Generally, most times, if there was a big repair, it would come out of the investing fund and not actually tax the emergency fund. The emergency fund is there for emergencies. So a big problem like a foundation that cost $20,000 or $30,000 to fix, yeah, that might slow it down a little bit till the next investment, but it isn't going to make me have to go find a job. Eric, howdy. What do you plan to do with your extra income as it builds up from the rentals in retirement? Buy new ones cash? Maybe. Pay off loans? Maybe. Probably not. The only time I've talked about paying off loans is selling one to pay off loans, because they're all under 5%, all but one are under 4%. So it doesn't make sense to pay those off. The tenants will pay those off. Not going to invest in stocks and crypto, or just use more lifestyle. A little bit of both. I'm definitely going to increase lifestyle. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to spend money on. It's weird. The money is going to build up. I'm probably going to buy more properties. I talk to the lenders that I work with. So I no longer have a W-2, but I have consistent years with income. So I could buy a primary based on my, 1 to 150,000 in cash flow from the last 2 years. So whatever that would qualify me for. I can buy a small multifamily with pretty much no limit to how much, based on, do I have the ability to save the down payment? Because they're going to count the rent from the new investment property in the debt to income ratio, which basically eliminates that. So I might buy some. So I might buy some with cash. I might buy some with a mortgage. It's going to be what every day I'm going to start doing the work again, because I've been lazy for this last month, learning how to be retired. What is the best deal and which way makes the most sense? If I saved up enough to basically buy a duplex all cash, so then I would have property taxes and insurance and repairs and maintenance to set aside. So I could add $2,000 to $3,000 a month to cash flow by just buying it cash. I could buy a bigger property, like a fourplex, get about the same cash flow, but appreciation on more property, and experience more principal pay down and start a new depreciation. I don't know, there's just, and this is a quote from my daughter, which I've said in live streams before. So if you've heard this, please bear with me. I thought my daughter was extremely smart when she said this. I took a mental note. I probably took a written note. We were talking about selling a house, paying off a loan, using the money to 1031. Like what option made the most sense? And she said, it's really hard to make a decision when both outcomes are positive. Think about that. It's super easy to go, this would suck, this wouldn't. I know which one I'm doing. But if they're both great, which one's greater, right? So I try to apply that to things. I don't know which situation's best, so it's going to be the best one that pops up first. Having I'm only going to buy a fourplex with a loan would mean I would miss a duplex. That would be a great buy. I might even buy a single family house. The one I looked at today that I'm going to make the offer on was a single family house, priced significantly less than the ones like it in the same area. I know the rents would justify it. I'm going to watch days on market. I'm going to make an offer that makes sense to my numbers in probably 3 days, if it's still not sold. Kevin, howdy. Thanks so much for doing this. What do you do if a tenant wants to end a lease early? What verbiage or penalties do you have in your lease for this situation? That's a good question. I was actually just working a friend through that today. She's placing a tenant in her duplex. And I'm just using my lease basically from the same one I got from Washington. There's a section in there where apartments in Washington basically say you have to pay rent until the end of your lease. We have to make reasonable efforts to rent it out, which means you're going to pay rent until the end of your lease, because good luck winning that in court. So if they have 10 places empty in their 300 unit place, they're going to fill the other 9 before they fill yours, right? I don't like that. I don't want to hold someone's feet to a fire saying you have to pay me this money. Like, this is a business. I don't want to lose money. So I have a lease termination fee, and I basically make it the same amount as a month's rent. So if someone's rent is last lease I signed $1,800, they're signing a 1-year lease. If they ever want to terminate the lease before the end of a year, they pay whatever rent up until they move out, right? And have to give the 20-day notice that Washington state requires, plus $1,800. So that would break the lease, go towards that. Generally, you have deposit to take care of any of the, cleaning, anything that's broken, just like on the end of a regular lease, if somebody moves out. That's probably how I would do it. I think I also have the human side that would go, why? Why are you leaving? Is this a divorce, death, changing jobs? Like, is there a justifiable reason? Did you buy a place? The last tenant I had that bought a place, like, was coming up on the end of their lease, and I knew it. And I was like, they want to buy a place. I was like, great. Here's the lenders I work with. Here's the agents I work with. Let me help you do this. I don't know. And I don't know if you can get in trouble if you don't charge your lease termination fee, because what happens if you charge someone in the future and somehow somebody found out? What were they discriminated for? It was the age, marital status, something that was different about them. Wombat Striker. Howdy, Nicholas. Of course, that is more of a value investing style, which isn't what most people think of with stocks. Dollar cost averaging is also more effective with index, since at least some stocks are usually down at any time. Sorry if I hijacked too much stock talk. I'm here to learn more about real estate also. No, I appreciate it. There are 3 paths to financial freedom that are the main ones talked about. There are other paths. Bank robbery is a great path to financial freedom, because you either steal the money and you're financially free, or you get caught and then you get prison, which is the ultimate house hack and form of retirement, because you get food, healthcare, place to sleep, all the sex you don't want. Like, it's a great plan for some people. So I don't talk about starting and growing a business much. Like, I grew the truck driving school, but I didn't start it and I didn't own it. So I wasn't entrepreneurial. I was employee. I don't talk about stocks, except for the few videos, and I try to do this very rarely because it brings out the haters. Here's why I chose real estate instead of stocks, right? And it's basically saying, I'm uneducated about stocks, so I don't invest in them. That's what their comment is. They're like, why are you talking about stocks? You don't know anything about them. Right. That's why I don't invest in them. Nicholas, Dion, do you set up pest control quarterly or anything on your properties? That would be area specific to your region. Are there pests that are a problem? I don't. In my area, we watch for, we can get 5-foot anthills sometimes, so you look for those. And I watch for termite damage. So I'll have inspections done, but I don't set up pest control unless there's an issue. So in my area, it doesn't seem to be, it's Washington state. It depends on where you're living and what's there. If you're in a place where there's, there could be a black widow infestation, maybe you want to set that up. I know Chandler David Smith would have some great opinions on that, because that's actually what his W-2 was. He started door-to-door pest control sales. So he would have way more information on that than me. I think I've had, in 10 years, I probably had 3 situations. I had one termite, not remediation, like they were fixing a problem, but like servicing, where they went in and I found some powder on the windowsills, which basically meant it's probably termites here. Nobody's seen one. So I just had it done to protect the place. And 3 times total where I've had that issue. I have had times where I've like, I'm going to take out some rat poison and put it in the crawl space. Make sure your pets don't have access to the crawl space. There's the property I own that's next to there's a big fence, so you can't see it, but there's like a pick and pull car parks thing. So there's a ton of rodents in there. So I've had to do rodent control there one time. Matt, howdy, Matt. I'm intrigued in that lady's story because she's retired off of 3 properties. Does she still have a job or not? She hasn't had a job for 4 years, but she has had other income. Kind of like me, I've retired, I've quit working, right? But I'm still, like I was doing this yesterday, I was doing a deposition for a trucking company that had an accident with a dump truck. I still have side hustle money coming in. I'm just not scheduled, no Monday through Friday. I still make money off of Amazon stuff. So I appreciate it when anybody goes and looks at the lock. So here's how Amazon affiliates work. If you have a social media platform with a lot of followers, so anything, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, talk about something. So and this is behind the scenes, so you know how this works. I'll go, here's the locks I use on my rental. I'm actually sharing. There's a reason why I use these locks. I like coded locks so tenants don't have keys. It's an upgrade to the property in Class C areas. People aren't used to that. I have 2 exterior locks that have codes so that I've never had a tenant lockout. The idea of if one battery died, it's going to die at a different time because doors get used more, one gets used more than the other. I don't like Wi-Fi connected ones or the ones that engage or disengage the bolt because the batteries die sooner. I use these specific locks, right? So I make a video, I put it out there. If you looked at that lock, people usually think Amazon affiliate means I'm looking at this lock. If I buy a lock, Dion's going to make 5 cents, right? Whatever it is, 10 cents, 20 cents, 2 cents. That's not how Amazon works. When you look at the lock for 24 hours, you have a cookie on that device that you looked at the lock with. Anything that you buy on Amazon, the person who brought you to Amazon gets a little cut. It doesn't cost you a penny. Doesn't cost you anything more. There's no upcharge. It's already booked into Amazon's costs. So it doesn't cost you an extra penny. But let's say somebody looked at my lock and then started an Audible account. I got $5. If you start an Audible account looking at one of my links, I get $5. That doesn't suck. So there's still ways to make money. And I guarantee that Tiffany Thomas, your wealth mentor, is making money through affiliate links. She probably has a few things like Hemlane is an affiliate of mine. I'm doing a review, and if you get the discount, I can make money if you use my discount, which saves you money and makes me money. So there's like a whole world of that out there. I don't know how much she's making from that, but I know if you had 3 rentals renting by the room, that's more money than I would need to live. So, yeah. Michelle, King County, yes, and the equity is a lot, and awesome. My favorite word, to make rent to be the best ROI. So rent by the room, short-term rental nurses are what I'm looking at. Nice, awesome. I call that property my retiring plan. Perfect. Thanks for all your help. That's a great way to look at it. Did I give you the website to go and look at how much they pay traveling nurses? So if you want to reach out to me, Michelle, I'll send it to you. Levi, howdy. Made the time to watch from Hawaii this week. Awesome. I'm curious what your never sell strategy looks like whenever you can't do or opt out of the self-management. I haven't had to be at a property. I've gone to one to do a tenants turnover recently because I wanted to do a live stream from there, but I haven't had to be at a property in 2 years. So if I get to the point where I can't handle an email and a text message, the never sell, what does it look like? And by then I'm probably living in a home. I could break down and hire property management, but I think, so with 16 rental units, it's taking me on average of 2 or less hours per month to manage it, unless I'm doing something like I want to go to the property and take a live stream, or do a live stream while I'm there. At what age can you not handle 2 hours a month? Texts and emails. Yeah, it's pretty much better than my marriages. This will actually be till death do we part. Interesting question. I'm at some point I might have to think about that. Nicholas, howdy. Dion, since you have house hacked multiple times, twice, how have you handled mail? Do you just forward it from each place, or do you just get everything to one post office box? So my solution early on was, because I lived in a house, moved to an apartment, moved to a duplex, moved to a fourplex. So I've only house hacked twice, but I did move a few times. My important mail would go to my work. So for me, that was a pretty easy solution. If that's an option for you, awesome. I don't have a work no more. So I don't have a work no more. Again, I'm disappointment in my grammar. I am getting a post office box because I plan on moving a few more times. I'm currently house hacking a fourplex. I'm probably going to house hack a fourplex and then spend 3 months in different countries. So I'm probably going to have an actual mail service where I have a post office box and then somebody, maybe not my handyman because they're expensive, but somebody else that I hired to go through mail to scan me what's important. I'm figuring out how much that's going to cost too. But I don't generally get much in the mail. Almost everything I get is electronic. Very rarely. They have one thing a year that comes in through the mail. That's the only way to get it. But the solution is going to be a post office box. Hard part there is going to be picking a post office box that's close to where I'm going to end up living in my next house hack, because I invest in 2 counties and that's a pretty big area. Levi, also, have you ever looked into upzoning a property? I own a house hack, single family with ADU, but see potential to add units if I can upzone. Neighboring properties are small and large multifamily if it matters. It depends on how hard your municipality is to work with. I have a triplex, which is technically a house and then a duplex. One of them is an ADU. One of them is a house. Don't know which is which. So it's zoned for 4. The city asked me, can you put in a 4th unit? We would really like you to. So it's going to be easy to work with them. They also want me to tie into city sewer, which I don't like. I prefer septic. It's on septic now. If I go to the 4th unit, I have to tie into city sewer. I won't like that. So that so far is stopping me from doing it. I haven't looked at upzoning. I would have to look at how hard is your municipality to work with. I know that it's getting easier to do that because of the housing crisis. There's more people in office that are trying to push for easier zoning laws. I think in a lot of areas, single family zones have just disappeared. So house with ADU is more common. I don't know if that's going to impact building duplexes as much as it's going to be adding an ADU. I haven't looked into it, but remember, I'm the super lazy investor and I don't like to build or add anything. I want to buy rent ready or already occupied and not really have to do much. And then weirdly make a bunch of money. This is so weird. Michael Jones took back a message to make me wonder forever what the thought was. Howdy, Michael. Nina, howdy. How do you find properties? Hello. So there's a lot of different strategies for searching. Some people will do drive for dollars, literally drive around your neighborhood and look for places that look run down. They'll look on rentals and they'll try to contact the owners to see if they're willing to sell. You can find a network of wholesalers in your area. I'm very lazy and I didn't want to make a job out of it. So I contacted at least 3 agents. Don't work with just one. If you're buying a home, if you're a home buyer and you're going to go have an agent show you a bunch of houses and you're going to take up a bunch of their time, you work with one agent. You respect their time. You probably sign an exclusivity agreement where you will just work with them. The agent should have you because you're going to take up their time. What I do, I interact with the agents once or twice and then never talk to them again until it's time to make an offer. So the agents I talk to, I tell them this, I'm transparent. I work with at least 3. So if you're willing to work with me, great. I've never had one say no yet. I've had some leave comments. I would never work with you. Great. You don't know me. You're leaving a comment. But I tell them, I want you to set up an auto search. So the MLS, the multiple listing service, I think that's what it is nationwide and they're local. So the agents in your area have access to your local MLS. And searching is nuanced. I have an email that says, I want to invest in these 2 counties. I'm looking for this type of property. In the beginning, I had this is the price limit I was looking for. I've taken that off. I don't want HOAs. I don't want foreclosures. I don't want a short sale. So these are the wants. These are the don't wants. And I give them the email. In over 10 years of investing, all the agents that I've worked with, one time, ever, just once, did anybody ever send me the same deal within a 24-hour period? Normally, one agent will find it. 3 days later, the other agent will find it. You have about 2 hours to make an offer in my market for the last 2 years. It's getting easier now, and we're going to be able to watch days on market. That's a new shift in the market. But for the last 2 years, if I didn't have an offer in 2 hours, I was mad at the agent. I was mad at the lender because speed was our friend. So 3 agents with searches on the MLS. If I was an agent and had access to the MLS, I would still have 3 other agents with auto searches set up sending me deals. So you get emails that show up saying, here's the properties for sale. Let me check something here really quick. Okay. Share screen. If random pictures show up that aren't allowed on YouTube, don't sue me, bro. I'm not a tech guy. So I'm going to share screen. Here we go. So we should now be seeing this. And of course, my YouTube went away. So let me know if all of a sudden you don't see anything. But we should be looking at this right here. This is an email search that came up for a house. So this search comes in, you can look at this property. I would look through, see, you know, in the area, this is a search up to a certain amount for possible burrs that I'm doing. But you get an email with the current one that they're searching. You can go back to listings and then it'll show you all of the properties that met your criteria. And you could just look through these. And so that's from one agent. And we have a guest pop in while I'm looking at my other screen. Howdy, Matt.
How you doing, pal? I was waiting to see how long it was going to be before you noticed I was here.
Well, nice. Well, I was sharing my screen when you popped in. Thank you, Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, for joining me. Let me finish answering this question really quick.
Of course.
And of course, my chat moved, which is awesome.
They're like, ah, crap, Lumberjack's here.
Yeah, no, not oh crap. House Act. Lost it. There we go. How do you find properties? So Nina, that's how I found properties. I literally get an email and you'll look at the one that's in that email, but then you can hit back to search and it'll show you all of the ones that met your criteria. So if you don't have to like open every email from that agent and look at every single one. I look at one and then I go back and I look through the entire list, and I have multiple agents that send me that list. So I know the area that I'm looking in, the type of properties I'm looking for, the type of properties I don't want. I don't want anything in an HOA. I don't want to buy short sales or foreclosures because I don't want to deal with the lending institution that's trying to offload it. Know the area average rents and know what your current interest rates are so that you can look at the price and figure out what price makes sense to you. The price on the listing is you can almost ignore it because that's the number that the seller was hoping to get. I'm gonna, if it speed mattered for the last 2 years, I would make the offer at asking price if it was what made sense, and maybe negotiate later. I've gone over asking price a couple of times on the deals where it made sense. But what I'm doing now is I'm watching days on market for the ones that really make sense. And if they make it 5 or 10 days, which is way longer than normal for my area, then I'm making a ridiculously stupid offer. Like if they want 400,000, I'm offering 320. Like just right off the bat, make them wonder why, and then see if we can meet in the middle somewhere. So how's it going, Matt?
It's going super awesome. What a day, huh?
But I see down there in the comments, somebody asked if this was sponsored by Alien Vodka, but no, this is sponsored by Raspberry Skull Vodka.
I know, I'm still waiting for my Fresca sponsorship. The hard stuff, 8:30 at night on the East Coast.
Awesome.
It was so awesome. I totally forgot I wasn't on one rental at a time today. I was sitting there in my office going, where the hell's that link? Waiting for the link.
Yeah, he's still on vacation, right?
I didn't tell me. So yeah.
Oh, yes. His daily update today was still on location.
So I literally, that's how I figured it out. I went to watch his daily update. I was like, he's still in a hotel room. We're not doing one today. All good. It was funny.
I have a feeling he's back by Thursday. So by Thursday, we'll be in the routine.
Yeah. And what routine is that, Dion?
The Three Amigos.
Yeah, I know that. The rest of your routine.
Oh, I don't know. Different every day.
Wake you up for that one. Wake you up for that one. For this one too.
Probably.
Where's Dion? I don't know.
My life has definitely turned into, I better go to bed. It's getting early. You've completely changed what time you get up in the morning. So now you're actually hitting all the early bird specials. Yep, exactly. So I was going through the questions here. Let's see if we can come together and help some people.
Absolutely.
Price and Pride. Howdy. Do you have any properties with large trees near a sidewalk or structure? You just must have went to my properties because I was looking at that the other day. Do you chop those down before they become problems and replant new ones elsewhere? Of course. No. So I don't chop anything down. The way I separate properties is 8 feet and down is the tenant's responsibility. So they can trim bushes, they can mow lawns. I have a fourplex where I do have a service, but all of the other ones, the yards are clearly defined as tenants. 8 feet and higher, a tree service will handle. I have removed trees because it was too close to the structure. But for the most part, tree trimming is what I'll go with. I'll hire a service that comes in, trims the tree to make it safe, gets it away from power lines, gets your insurance is going to require a certain gap between any wood structure and the shrubbery or trees anyway. But I do inspect those. I do consider that when I'm buying a property. I look, because I'm in Washington State. We have super tall, super unsafe trees. And it's not that they might fall down. It's that we've got these things here called widow makers. And that's a limb like this falling from 80 feet. Yeah. How is that in Siberia? You guys have that too, right?
Yes. It's a problem because all those classic New England tree-lined streets, they bust up the sidewalk. So, and so you're literally, in some cases, you're having to cut down a 160-year-old tree that's on a tree-lined street. And that's a process. It was really funny. We had a thing a couple of years ago where they said, we're going to put new sidewalks in around this neighborhood where I actually own 3 properties in the neighborhood. And I said, okay, all right. What's going to happen to the trees? They're like, well, so we actually had a company come in and value all the trees. I said, oh, okay. So what's the value of these trees? And so she's like, she looks at it and she goes, well, that one's worth 9,000. That one's worth 5,000. This one's worth 7,000. I was like, okay. I was like, well, do you guys, like, I'm getting giddy. I'm like thinking that they're going to write me a check. She goes, yeah, so we're not going to give you anything for it, actually. She goes, we're actually going to give you 0. We just need you to sign off saying that you're not going to hold the town responsible, and we're going to put a new sidewalk in. I'm like, well, then what did you evaluate the price of the trees for? She goes, some people want to know. I go, oh, no, that tree's a problem, but it's worth $7,000 on paper. Don't touch it. Some of this stupid stuff. Yeah.
There's a lot of people, especially in Washington State, where we have issues with trees. My family owns residential tree services, so they did logging and they did trees. And they're always the same thing. So I even see here from Price and Pride, here's a question about trees, but I get it. You would also replant elsewhere, of course, right? Like there's this stigma of if you take out a tree, you're a bad person.
Sure.
There are twice as many trees in Washington State as there was in 1950. And they've been farmed to such a point to where we don't have the big, huge fires like they have in California. So the more logging you do with tree replacement, the better it is for the environment. The more trees there are and the more controlled you are for burns. We still get the occasional one that takes out 14 million acres, but it's not like in the 70s or 80s. It would be the whole state on fire for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, William Kraft, howdy. Great to see you again. Hunting for property too. Thanks. Awesome. That is amazing.
That's awesome.
And then Kip did the super chat, which I appreciate, and we talked about earlier. Michael Jones, howdy. REI Stoners, howdy. Have you ever bought a property that you needed to live in, but all the units were occupied? Yes. And I just talked about it like 10 minutes ago, maybe 15. So I'll talk about it again, just in case you just jumped in. I purchased a fourplex. All units were occupied. 2 had long leases, 2 had month to month. So it's fairly easy to eliminate 50%. I then interacted with the tenants. I went in for the inspection and I went in when I was with the appraisal. So the appraisal, I've been there twice. One of the tenants lied to me and said, I'm the property manager, so I pay 50% rent. And I thought, that sounds great. If I was going to own this and had a property manager, I might cut a deal for somebody that took care of everything, because I have to have the lawn mowed anyways, right? So I'm paying for something. I checked the rent rolls from the owner. Every single tenant was paying the same amount of rent, and it consistently paid the actual deposits, the same amount of rent for the last 2 years. So because that person was lying and I had to owner occupy, it was very easy to choose which one. I still did hey, let's do cash for keys. You tell me the deposit on where you're moving. I'll pay that, make this easier. I get that moving sucks, but it was easier to choose the one that told me a lie versus the one that has been a great tenant ever since. The other one was actually the tenant that binder strategied me and got me the smallest rent increase that year that I had ever done. Did I ever tell you that one, Matt? So they run month to month. And my normal strategy is I buy a place, and for 2 months, I watch to see which tenants I want to keep.
Mm-hmm.
So I put in coded locks. I put in motion sensor LED lights. I ask the tenants if there's anything they want. And it could be like, put in a screen door, fix the ceiling fan or whatever. Those tenants came to me and said, we see that you're fixing the place up and you kicked them out. We really don't want to get kicked out. If we raise our rent $155, would you let us sign a year lease? Sure. Why not? I didn't even make a binder or go talk to him. And my binder strategy is usually $250 to $400, somewhere in there. So it was the lowest one, but
sure.
Good move on them. They're still there. They're still tenants. They're
Love it.
about to experience the binder strategy again because it's been almost 3 years. Yeah,
Yeah, it's time. They're due.
it is time. Jay Hayes, cheers. Nina, I'm lazy too. Some of us are. So it's my superpower.
Yeah, your lazy's really kicked in the last 4 weeks.
Oh man. But it took this level of lazy to get here. It took me going, work sucks, working after work sucks, working overtime sucks, investing sucks, working on rentals sucks, screening tenants sucks. I'm going to do all this so that I can never do 90% of that ever again.
Agreed. I concur.
Nicholas, hey Dion, does Section 8 raise rents annually when the year lease is near ending? Yes, that depends on your area. And they might have a level limit of what they would take rents to. And I've experienced that where they told me 18 was as high as they would go. And I did the binder strategy, sent them emails of showing them comps of 23 to 2,400. So we set rent at 2,200. You have a lease between you and the tenant. It operates under all of the rules and regulations your state has for that tenant. So if you have rent control, you can only raise the amount of rent control for that area. If you don't, it's what the tenant will agree to. So they have to agree to the rent increase or they can move out. They cannot renew the lease. They're not trapped there. And then the housing authority has a contract, not a lease. They have a contract with you for them to pay the portion that they agree to. So yep.
That's true. That's how that works. Yeah. But you don't get it automatically. You actually have to ask for it.
Yeah, you have to
In my
say
state.
it. You have to say it here. You have to
yeah.
send the new lease to them saying me and the
Yes.
tenant have agreed to this. And then they go through. It's actually worked out in the benefit of my tenants. There was a tenant that was in place and hadn't had their income reviewed in several years. And their income stayed the same, like decades of these were fixed income, retired people, right? So that's their income. Rents had gone up. So the ratio changed to where their percentage went down. So they were paying, it was like $600 a month of the rent, and the housing authority is paying like 15.
Yeah.
Changed theirs to 300. Even though the rent went up, their rent went, the tenant was ecstatic.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
can imagine. Do you have to do, so in my state, it's 60 days that you have to give them notification that the rent's going up? Is it
Same here? So that might be kind of normal. It's 20 days if you don't want to renew a lease. You have to give 20-day notice, both sides.
Mine's still
tenant,
60. It's 60
okay.
on both sides. Yeah.
Okay. And then, but if you want to do a rent increase of greater than 10%, it's 60-day notice. In Seattle, it's if you have to have 6 months notice. And if they don't like it, you have to pay 3 months worth of rent to help them move. So know your local laws.
That's a phenomenal.
Or insanity, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
Michael Jones, howdy. I've heard you say you do 2-year lease. How do you go about getting it notarized and getting the legal description to attach it to the lease? Meet where there's a notary for the tenant to sign. And you are right. If the lease in most states is over 12 months, so 12 months or less, you don't need to notarize either side. Here in my area, I don't know about yours, Matt, but
no notary.
Yeah, over 12, it has to be notarized. I worked at a truck driving school. We had a notary at each campus, so it's fairly easy for me. But your bank probably does it for $2 to $10 to get that notarized for a 2-year lease. So it's really not that hard, and it actually protects the tenant. You could say, look, this is, you're notarizing this, or we're initializing. Words are hard. We're initialing each page, so I can't sneak in something later.
Yep. Yep. That's it. And to your point, every bank has them. Every bank has a notary.
Yeah.
And you're better off taking it to your bank, especially if you have multiple properties with multiple accounts. You're better off because they'll waive the fee.
Yep. And you can set up ACH while you're there. You can
exactly
do all kinds of things there. So
yes.
Dewey, I'm looking at some rentals near a base here in Southern Georgia. That's what GA is, right? What is the average rent that military members can afford? Your military installation will have a set, what's called BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing. You can contact your military installation. The easiest way to find out which agency handles housing there would be to call your MWR, Morale, Welfare, Recreation. They probably don't handle it, but they'll know who does because each installation is different. Sometimes it's a civilian nonprofit. Sometimes it's a government appointed position. But they'll tell you what the BAH is for the area. That doesn't mean that's what they can afford. That means they're going to get paid that amount. They're going to be looking for places that cost less. But here on the West Coast, I invest next to Joint Base Lewis McChord, one of the largest military installations on the West Coast. They raised their BAH for an E5 from 14 something to 18 something 1 year, and all of the rents went up $400. Didn't matter if you were military or civilian, whatever the BAH is, that kind of dictates what rents go to. So
Sure.
You have military not too far from you?
We did, so we have nuclear subs, yeah, shipyard. So it's it's Groton, Connecticut, it's San Diego, and it's Hawaii. Those are the 4 places that work on subs. And so
The
we're right there.
gentleman that I met the other day
Yeah.
that had the card that you recommend,
Yeah.
Theo, he actually invests on an island here in Washington next to a naval base, has 56 units, and he's not all military, but he's heavily military in that area because he's on the island. There's not much else to do there. So
I was shocked to learn. I got a call from a colonel one day. I was like, what'd I do? And he goes, this something or other, petty officer, I think it was petty officer. I don't know. I'm probably mixing up the branches. I can't remember exactly. But he said this person, he's packing up his bags. He's leaving today. They will make sure that rent is covered and they will get somebody else in the spot. Yes, sir. Are there any problem with that? No, sir.
So the really cool thing, one of the reasons I like to rent to the military and I like to rent to Section 8, you have someone to call if you have a problem. You rent to somebody unless their mom or dad is co-signing with them. You ain't calling anybody. You're getting the courts involved. I've not had to call the military, but I was in the Marines, and I know that if somebody calls your command, that's bad. But you could talk to your tenants and say, look, you guys, if you had the issue of noise complaint, you could say, look, you guys are having a noise complaint. I'm probably going to have to talk to your unit, and your noise complaints stop.
Yeah, we actually had somebody from the Coast Guard skip out. He said, well, I didn't need to notify you that I left because he was one of 5 roommates. And so, but the 5 roommates kept on paying what they were paying. And I would send him a message. I was like, we haven't gotten your rent. We haven't gotten your rent. We haven't gotten your rent. And nothing. And then finally I said, hey, just so you know, I'm just going to hand this over to my attorney. All of a sudden I got a text back. He goes, I haven't lived there in 4 months. I go, you never notified us. Do you have a letter where you sent it to us, certified, anything? He's like, no. He goes, well, I don't think I should have to pay. I go, well, if ifs and buts with candy and nuts, we'd all have Merry Christmas, but you're paying.
The military can get out of a lot of things justifiably. If you get orders to go somewhere, you don't have to pay your lease termination fee. You can get a couple of other things, but you have to give notice.
You have to give notice. That's the whole thing I said to him. I was like, all you had to do was send me something saying that was happening so I could adjust the other roommates' rents back up because you're joint and severally liable. That was a problem. So we're fighting. We're discussing through. He said, here, talk to my attorney. And so I look her up. It's his mom. I was like, hi, Mom.
Well, he could probably afford the retainer. So the next question, I think, happened just before you popped into the video.
Okay.
Laura, when buying a property, do you try to put the least amount of down payment or more than 20%? Matt the Lumberjack mentioned that he tries to put down the least amount of down payment. What is your strategy? I want to do the most down I can because I have a different strategy than Matt. I'm trying to put money to work in a property. I'm not trying to recycle capital. I was trying to be in a position where I can handle massive rent drops, even though we've never seen one since 1914. And probably not before then, because that's just when we started tracking the data.
Exactly.
My first duplex, I had the option to use a VA. I chose to go conventional and did 5% down because I purchased a house in 2000 or 99, somewhere around in there. It's a blur. End of a marriage. Try to ignore the whole decade. Unsuccessfully. But I did a 0 down, first time owner occupied lending thing that our county had going where I didn't use VA, I just had to wrap the closing costs in. You know, I bought it for 98,000, loan was for 104. So I had 0 to move into this house. Refinanced it for 150 to pay my ex her part of the equity when we separated. 2008 hit, I was 150,000 owed on a house that was worth a lot less, and my adjustable rate hit. I was kind of the cause of the 2008 housing crash. I was over leveraged and didn't plan for an adjustable rate mortgage because I don't know how any of that worked. Luckily, refinanced, had just enough money to keep the property. So I ended up not going through a foreclosure, which would have sucked for law enforcement at the time. So when I bought the duplex, I was like, I don't want VA because that's 100% leveraged. I want to have some skin in the game. I paid I think it was $62 a month in mortgage insurance. So it really wasn't that much of an impact. I was reducing my housing payments by $1,200 a month. I didn't care how the math worked on that. Since then, I've done 20% down on a fourplex because it was every penny I had to do that. All the other ones I've done 25% down. And if I buy another one going forward, it's going to be at least 25 because I like the cash flow. I'm not looking to build the machine like the lumberjack landlord or Michael Zuber is, where you have, 100 or 200 units. I'm not sure I want 16. As I add one, I might look at how they're performing and offload one or keep more. I want freedom. And freedom is, to me, about 5 times coming in that it costs me to live very comfortably. I'm there. So that's how I look at it. I know, Matt, you're the slowest you can get in, the bigger you can go, because you're playing, you are gaining massive appreciation. You're gaining massive principal pay down. You have many, many times what it takes for you to be financially independent and financially free coming in. Like, I get it. Your strategy totally works.
I live saucy though. That monthly nut's big for me. No, I mean, that's just, and the bigger thing too was the reason why the lowest down payment possible was because that's when I was house hacking. Now I can't get away from it. It is 20% at the minimum, period, end of story. Very, if it's a seller finance, that's why I love the idea of the seller finance deal, is being able to get away with maybe 10%. I can't get away with that. With the bank, they want a minimum of 20, if not 25 from me. The only break point for me with the bank is that now I can get 30-year fixed rate debt with 20% down. But when I was bouncing house to house, I was taking owner occ loans because I wanted the lowest down payment, because I wanted to try and, do work there on my own dime, then refinance it, do a cash pull, then buy the next property with down payment. But you can do 3.5. I did FHAs, I did 203Ks, I did conventionals, whatever I needed to do to, at the time, get the lowest price I possibly could to move into that house. Because the idea was to try and refi when I finished the work that I did there, then take that money and then buy the next one. So that's how I rolled it. But yeah, now for the last 10 years, I'd say for the last 10 years, or 8 or 10 years, everything has been at least 20% down, if not 25.
Tim Crawford just hit the like button, so we know an angel got their wings or retired before Matt. One of the two. You can choose. John Williams, howdy. You recently had area rets sent with only one listing comp to compare to on that platform. When I was sharing that, John, that was, I think, apartments.com that had one listing, Zillow, Redfin, Trulia. There was a couple of others in there. And that was the specific townhome style. There were apartments, there were some single family, but that was the only one that came really close in matching it. What would you do if there were 97 open units? Okay, so that's a lot. But is that apartments and townhomes and condos all grouped together, or did you separate them out? And what's the population of the area? 97 units in downtown LA. That's not a lot. In McKenna, Washington, that's 120% of the units. And the area listed was 1,850 to 2,000, 2,100. So I would look at apartments generally rent for the least. Falling apart houses rent for the same as apartments. Then townhomes and small multifamily rent for a little more. And then single family homes that are in good shape rent for more than that. That's generally how our area breaks down. It might be different in different areas.
Two words: rent box. Rent box.
Yes, study the rent for at least a couple of weeks. See which ones go quick.
Yep.
Those were maybe a little too low, and then see the ones that go really high. Is there another factor? Is it next to a club? Is it next to a rig, train station, at the airport? Or is it that's just it? So I learn your area average and run your numbers. I like to run conservatively, almost 10% below rents when I'm looking at will I get my return? Because it's better to pad negatively and get a great deal than to hope and maybe not come that close.
I did. I got $300 a month more rent for one of my places because I was rent boxing for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
$300 more a month. Yeah, it was crazy. I was just like, I can't believe that they're getting rents like that over there. But they are, and they did. And I was like, done, we'll go there. And then when we posted it, we had 80 inquiries in the first, 48 hours and got a bunch of people to see it and had 5 or 6 people to choose from and picked one set of people that were just perfect.
Yeah, very similar to the mine I just did. I'll be doing a Hemlane review on how this went. Within 6 hours, I think there were 5 applications actually filled out.
That's awesome.
One didn't qualify, one backed out. The other ones were qualified. I had a lot of interest because I was on so many different platforms. That wasn't a new one to me. And I kind of watched to see which platform got the most interest.
Which one did?
Lovely, which I had never heard of before.
Lovely?
Lovely got a few of them. Yeah, it's weird.
Hmm.
I didn't even know that was a thing. But
Lovely.
so know your area average rents. Take the time to learn it and watch it. It won't be the same in 2 weeks. It won't be the same in a month. Julie Anderson, howdy. Started late, so you've been listening to us on like chipmunks on 1.5% speed. Had to take care of sprinklers and not shutting off at the apartment. It's always something. It is always something, but it still beats a 50-hour-a-week job. Mad.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Keith, howdy. I love making money while I sleep.
Yes.
I like to make money 24/7, 365. Rentals equals freedom. It absolutely does. I did a video, I think about 2 months ago now. I have to figure out the name of it because I whiteboarded. Here's how much I make per hour, 24 hours a day. Here's how much I make per hour, 40 hours a week. So if we took the rentals and said, okay, so if I was working a 40-hour job and it was like $19 an hour or $80 an hour, whether I'm awake or not. Like it was kind of one of those ones I whiteboarded and then I was like, I am totally retiring. Because like in the military, you make like $1.50 an hour, 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
so in comparison,
I think we back napkined it. I'm not sharing that number.
Yeah,
okay. Napkined it. Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit earlier in this video about how you and Super, your numbers are great to pursue, right? But if you're brand new, it would seem unachievable. So with your guys' content, we talk about get to 4 rentals and watch how your life changes.
100%. I mean, I even look at it now and there's always that conversation of, do I scale way back, pay a bunch of stuff off? Yeah, I get it. It's Saturday.
How many cups am I going to go through of my water?
Yeah, I'm guessing you're going to reach for that cup a lot more often now that I'm on. But that was one of the things is like, do we sell some and pay a bunch off, or do we keep on growing? And right now we have all the processes in place and we've got people that we're putting in place. And so for us, we'll just keep on doing great deals. And there is a case too with once you get to a certain size that you can then sell your entire portfolio. So somebody that I know just sold a 54 unit portfolio and they got it was a 8-figure deal. So
there's a business model very similar to that for starting and growing a business. And I'm not going to name him like I normally do. And then I make a joke and name them. This is a friend of mine. So Pharrell Gas is a propane company that's pretty large in our area. This guy goes out and he buys a propane truck. So he probably spends 70 grand on a 4 or 5 year old propane truck. He starts delivering propane on a local route and he builds the route until he has like 20 customers. He then sells that business to Pharrell Gas for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Buys a truck, builds another route. He's on like his 5th one. Genius.
Yeah, I had a guy that I knew that did that with oil companies. He sold his 3rd one. He goes, these guys were smart. They made me lock up for 5 years. And I said, but you made him pay for it, right? He goes, oh yeah.
Right. Kevin Kauto, howdy. How do I buy a for sale by owner property if the seller isn't paying the buyer commission? So the first thing I would do is clear up a myth. A lot of people say the seller pays the commissions. The seller doesn't pay anything at all.
Right.
The buyer pays for everything. Some of it you finance, some of it is in your down payment. So your down payment, your borrowed money, your down payment or your borrowed money is going to totally amount to cover the commissions. It's just going to come from your side instead of out of title at the end from seller's amount. The money comes from you. You're borrowing it or you're bringing it. So that's how I would do it from sellers, is just figure my down payment has to include what it's going to take for the commissions for these agents. Or can you borrow that amount depending on your lender? That was a good question.
Great question.
REI Stoners. I have not tried your gift yet. I contacted my daughters. One of my daughters ran a dispensary. She ran 3 of them for several years here. So she's super excited about me not having a CDL job for the first time. I'm looking at a duplex on acreage, and my first thought was maybe I could build on in the future. Would you take acreage into account when running your numbers? I don't. Do you know if the municipality is going to allow you? Do you think they're going to let you in 5 years? Is it going to be the same people in place? Can you subdivide? Some places won't let you. And if you can, do you know the rules? Zuber, with almost 200 units, is over 2 years now on building an ADU because of how hard his municipality is to deal with. So if you had a strategy where you were subdividing properties, or you had a strategy where you were building properties, and that was one of the things you added to it, sure. But as an investing strategy to get started, I would look at acreage as part of the rent. Is it in a place where there's a lot of equestrian stuff? Is it someplace where, a person could have a shop and run a business? Is there other uses for that wouldn't require building? Could you buy to build? I have a friend who did. In 2020, they bought 3 acres. They sold a single family short-term rental, and they took the money and bought 3 acres that had a house. The plan was build a duplex, build an ADU, and build a tiny home, and RV house hack. So they're house hacking on their RV. They're renting out the house. They haven't broke ground on anything else yet because pandemic, eviction moratorium, delay in getting materials, cost of materials. The city saying, "Oh, you can't do a duplex even though you just spent $7,000 on the plans." 2 months later, "Oh, you can totally do a duplex now." So it's been 2 years where that guy could have probably retired with that property had everything gone right. Or buy something that cash flows day one, maybe add to it in the future. Look for the next thing that cash flows day one.
Yeah, I would do, I would look at the zoning. I would then talk to the planning board, because every town has one. And I would ask them, is there any plan for that area to be rezoned? And then if you get those 3 answers, because if you can I bought a piece of land that is just, I got a lot out of it. Say that lot was worth $250,000 and it cost me $9,000 to get that lot for $250,000. But those 3 things: zoning, talk to the planning board, ask them about if that area is being rezoned.
When was this?
2020.
2020. So 18 years into your investing.
Yeah, very deep. Yep.
19 years into your investing. Right.
Yep.
Massive, in my opinion, massive portfolio, huge cash flow to handle this will work out great as an addition to what we're doing, and we have the resources to do it.
What was there still had the cash flow. What was there? So lastly, what was there still had the cash flow. It did.
Correct.
Yeah. So the key is finding that opportunity, but not necessarily paying up for it. Like, I wouldn't pay a $50,000 premium for it in hopes that you can do that. Would I pay a list price as an example where the property still cash flowed? Yes. But the property has to cash flow. It can be on the lower end of what I would accept for a good deal, but it still has to cash flow. I would not be writing a check on a monthly basis based on opportunity.
Same thing with short-term rental.
Yeah.
If it will break even, make a little cash flow as a long-term rental, and I can benefit from short-term rental now because you could lose that ability.
Yeah,
sure. Carrie, howdy. Thoughts on a home equity line of credit for getting an investment property? I have a couple of thoughts. The first one is not on your first or second deal. This tends to be when we make the biggest mistakes. I wouldn't put where you live at risk to make those big mistakes. Once you have a couple of rentals and you have consistency, I have a reasonable confidence in my ability to get this return, and that return justifies the debt on the existing asset. So both will cover the debt on the existing, debt on the new, and generate the return you're looking for. Do you have that deal? Do you have confidence that you'll find that deal? And I don't mean, I think in our area, I mean, you see listings that you think you could get your price that you would need to get accepted, not a wish, like you hope they drop it enough at current rates. It's a strategy that works. That's what my brother did. He got to 10 paid off rentals paid off his house. He took out a home equity line of credit, bought a place, paid it off, rinsed and repeated till he got to 10. And then he retired at 50. So it's a strategy that works. But Are you educating yourself? Have you done 1 or 2 deals? Do you know how to find a tenant, screen a tenant, get a lease, collect rents, have your reserves built up, like all the things it takes to have the basics down and the deal? Sure.
Yep, I agree with that.
Okay. Ronald, howdy. Is it sponsored by Alien Vodka? No, it is sponsored by Raspberry Skull Vodka. No, pomegranate Skull Vodka, because it's red, makes the skull look better. Michelle, by the way, for everyone waiting to act, thanks to the 3 amigos, especially Dion, thank you, and Matt, because he's here now. I closed on my second rental yesterday. Awesome. A duplex that at current rents, it cash flows, and they are approximately 30% below market. That is awesome. Let us know how the binder strategy goes. Remember 2 things. You're bound by the existing leases, so don't worry until you're within like 60 days of the end of that lease, unless they're on month to month. And maybe wait a month or 2 after you close to make sure that they pay their rent on time. They don't get noise complaints, and they don't call you for super trivial things, to make sure that you actually want to keep these tenants, and then let me know how the binder strategy goes.
I agree.
Austin Brewer, howdy. 1 million net worth probably happened about the same time as 1 million in debt. It happened in the exact same transaction. As I was purchasing the 4-plex, the net worth, because I purchased equity, basically it appraised for so much more than what I paid. I can't believe what it's worth now, but it's almost like buying rental properties works out in your favor. So it created $1 million in debt, broke the $1 million in debt threshold. I haven't yet broke the 2 million, and I don't know that I will. I might. Depends on if I buy the next one cash or with a mortgage.
2 million net worth?
No, I'm at 3 million net worth of
I was
1.8
gonna say, you're
million
over
debt.
that. Yeah.
So
Oh, don't worry, we can work. We can get you some stupid debt.
I just don't know if I want it. And it's the important thing to always say, don't compare year 10 to year 1. In growth phase, you are growing. At retired, financial freedom, enough cash flow, I'm adding units because, and this sounds stupid, but it's a great problem. I have to put the money somewhere.
Right.
Like,
you're not like all thrilled about that 0.015 interest rate you're getting.
No,
yeah, it's not that high.
I don't think it's that high. It's point zero. No, it's 0.01. Like there's no 5. So yeah, no, I'm not thrilled about that. I'm not thrilled about having money in there to where FDIC wouldn't cover it either, or whatever it is.
That's exactly right.
FCC or whatever it is.
So
this is not a political channel, but have you seen any of the things on what's happening with banking in China?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not talking about that tonight, but it might be worth going and doing some research to even just try to find out what's happening there. Keith at Kevin Cowto and Keith Hager, negotiate with a flat fee at closing and include it into closing cost request. A fee is different than a commission. Better answer than mine. Thanks, Keith. That's awesome.
Real quick on that bank thing, there's a video on my channel that talks about banks that actually have gap coverage. So it goes above the 250 FDIC.
Was it that you called it NIC coverage, or what is that?
Yeah, I think it's what it is. I think it's NIC coverage. But yeah, basically the difference is that FDIC will cover up to 250. A lot of the mid-sized local banks will actually pay extra money for additional insurance on top of FDIC that covers everything 250 and over. So that way, even if you have $1 million in all of your accounts combined, you're still 100% covered.
Nice. I remember you did that video. It was really cool. Travis, howdy. Happy Tuesday. Do you give your tenants your personal phone number? Yes. Or do you use a separate cell phone for your rental property? If you're concerned about that, I would get a Google number where basically you have an app where you can assign any number. A friend told me that that's how they use dating apps. Yeah. But I use with my tenants my actual cell phone number. I want to be easy to get a hold of. And they have my email too. If you're really concerned about having tenants having access to you, I have a property manager. My tenants, after they've interacted with a handyman 1 or 2 times, they also get the handyman's number, and the handyman knows the threshold of what they can do. You know, I have a good relationship with them, have them use them several times, that they can if they can do anything up to $500 and then just bill me later. I don't even need to be contacted. I'll just get an email bill later. It depends on your relationships with your handyman and how the handyman gets along with tenants. Not everybody has the same amount of customer service. Laura says 1 million in debt came first, and now you've heard same time.
Same deal.
Same deal, yeah.
Same deal, yeah.
And then Daniel Pitchler. Howdy. Daniel is retiring. What does it say? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 3 days. Counting down 3 days.
Whatever,
Started
Daniel, just
investing
another
in
guy's
2000.
beating me.
He's going to beat you too. Must be an angel. He's retiring before you. Somebody hit the like button. So he started investing in 2018. I want to do a video. I'm going to wait until right after he's retired of, what did that timeline look like? It took 4 years for you to make work optional. One of the requests from the company owners that I retired from was, can you please not teach any of the other employees how to make work optional and take them away? But out of 60 people working there, 2 have listened to me and started investing. So that's why I love the YouTube world. These are actually, we are people who want to do this.
People want to do it. Mm-hmm. No posers here, eh? No posers.
Good, my friend. Congratulations on number 40. Somebody referenced that earlier today. What was that? Number 40.
Oh, your show.
The number of the live stream today.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Oh.
I pick on my memory, man. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Dewey, where do you get your move in and move out checklist? Do you have one of those, Matt?
I do.
Go ahead. I don't have one of those. I've had 4 in 10 years. I don't.
I was just going to say, I was like, Dion, you only speak on things you're qualified to speak on. Retirement, maybe, but move in, move
It's
out.
a skill
checklist?
I don't want to develop. But go ahead.
I built it. I built it just from experience. But yeah, I built it. I built it from scratch. We've refined it over the years. Things that you double check and follow up on.
Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So if you send it to me, or maybe you can talk.
Yeah, it'll be a version of it. So I will have that in my course, but I'll happily send it to you. It's not a.
Okay. Yeah, just something, just a really brief, the bullets, and if they want all of the details, then they would get that in the course.
Absolutely, it's all in there. It's good. We got burned a few too many times because when we started getting more units, we had more people like yesing us to death, and they weren't changing the electric into their name.
Laura, howdy. I do pay for, we talked about pest control earlier, and I referenced Chandler David Smith because he might be a good resource for pest control, because that's actually the job he had before as he invested, which he just retired from. Must be weird. Something in the water. Florida, even though the lease says it's in the tenant's responsibility, that is a good call. Happy tenants don't leave, and happy tenants don't trash a place. We hold the tenants to the letter of the lease, but that doesn't mean we can't be nicer.
Yes.
So good call. And then my chat moved.
You said you had what? You said you had rodents once.
Yeah, so I've rodents at this one, termite remediation at the other.
Yeah.
And I know there was a third one, but I was thinking for like 2 minutes after talking about it. I can't.
Yeah, I was watching that part. Yeah. I've had cockroach once, bedbug once, rat twice.
I've never had the bedbug thing. I don't know that I don't know that it's a Washington thing. I think the climate might be off for it. For tenant. I don't know.
You think it's easier for a bedbug to live in Siberia? Come on.
Yeah, they want to go in the house where it's warm. Like here, they go outside. It's the right temperature. And then I want to say thanks to Kip for the super chat. I really appreciate the super chats, even if these are super nice super chats. I really appreciate it. If somebody does like $1, it tells YouTube, like it likes that someone watches, so it shares it with more people. The thumbs up helps. Comments help a lot. But when somebody goes, hey, here's like $1, and this is even bigger, so I really appreciate the super chats. Then it goes, let's share this information with more people.
Do you know how they killed the bed bugs? They heated the house up to 120 degrees.
Interesting. 132 certain viruses die. So 120 degrees. Okay.
120 degrees. It kills all the.
That's like Texas for the last month, right? So there's no bed bugs in Texas.
You said to shut off the AC.
Right. Sorry, anybody who lives in Texas. I know that. My niece just moved down there, and every message from her is, "I'm dying."
Yeah, I have family in Houston, Austin, and Dallas. So yeah.
Nice. And the super chat was because there are now 2 of the amigos. So thank you, Matt, for showing up.
My pleasure.
I'll buy one of the drinks when we're in Vegas. I know you don't drink. I'll drink it for you.
Yes. You can take both the drinks.
Does Ashley drink? Really?
No. No, married to me, shocking, but yeah.
Right. I was gonna go there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I lost my spot.
She's usually in bed by 8:30. We don't need to hasten that.
Okay. Looking for my spot where I was at.
Oh, good. So yeah, that's how we did the bed bugs, was you basically close everything off, you stop all the air from moving, and then they cook it. It's crazy. And then rats I don't like poisoning rats because they'll die in the walls. So ours is all about trying to do traps and making sure you're closing off enclosures. You can use steel if there's any holes anywhere, use steel wool. They can't chew through steel wool. And
I had a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And it was the place next to
they'll chew the line.
The pick and pull. So they'll chew the line. You know what I did?
What?
Because they went through the line like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I tried everything to control them. So somehow they were just getting in. It was the rodents from the field next door.
Yeah.
I went and got electric tubing.
Yeah.
And ran the dishwasher drain because it was where the water goes through that.
Yeah.
They never got through that.
So what's really interesting is, do you know why they seek out water?
The poison's dehydrating them.
That's right. That's exactly why they seek it out.
Yep.
There was a better poison that we saw one time that was like a 2-day. It was like it kills in like 1 or 2 days as opposed to like 5 to 7.
Right.
So,
and that's why, like at the CDL school, we also had, big trucking yards. So we had to do rodent control there too. And it's the stuff that dehydrates them when they die. So if they die, you don't get the smell is the goal. But I still in the house, I'm the same thing.
yeah,
I'd rather get them out.
Off gassing. Oh, it's awful.
Matt Bittner. So that lady, which we are talking about, Tiffany Thomas, here the retired on 3 rentals. Tiffany Thomas, Your Wealth Mentor is her YouTube channel. Her YouTube channel is kind of about frugality, so kind of like early Graham Stephan stuff. But with 3 rentals, renting by the room, you don't have to be too minimalist. I'm guessing she has plenty of cash flow coming in, and she has other stuff. She quit her W-2 in 2018, but she still has the other income too. Rick Cantu, howdy. I follow Pat David from Valuetainment. I used to watch a lot of his, and please don't take this wrong if anybody does this, the bro talk and the thinking whatever, it doesn't matter, but whatever religion you are, if you think it all the time, the channels kill me. But I did used to watch a lot of his. He says prices will drop in price for sure. I'm in Austin currently, prices are too high and rates make it even worse, impossible to buy and have cash flow. So I guarantee prices are going to drop. Michael Zuber says prices are going to drop. Certain areas are going to drop. I want someone to show me the market, and I'm stealing this from Matt, the lumberjack landlord. Show me the market. If I was editing, that would be show me the money right there. But show me the market where the prices are lower than last year, because you don't have a price drop until prices go below where they were. If somebody says my house is worth $1 trillion and it sells for 500,000 tomorrow, that's not a price reduction. What was it worth last year? What did it sell for now? A 25% reduction in prices right now would still be a year-over-year increase.
Right.
So yes, I'm hoping all investors are that some prices come down and we can buy some deals. But the purpose of this video, dollar cost averaging, was a weak association of don't time the market, save, work on your credit, hunt for the great deal, buy the great deal when you find it. That might be tomorrow. That might be in 2029. There's no timing, no sitting back and waiting. It's when you find the great deal, learning what the great deal is and maybe adjusting your asset strategy too. Yep. Matt, are you able to get the 1% rule out of your rentals? First year investing, not one of my properties ever came close to the 1% rule. It's a flawed and outdated rule. I actually have a video on my channel called the 1% rule, flawed and outdated. It made sense in 2010 and 2011 when the market was flooded with millions of foreclosures and you needed a filtering system to figure out which ones were the best deals to pursue. Mm-hmm. Is your market flooded with millions of deals to filter through? So I get 10% or better cash on cash return. My property that got a 17% cash on cash return first year didn't hit the 5.05% rule. That because that doesn't talk about, is there a $500 a month HOA? Are your property taxes $1,000 a year, like in Yelm, Washington, or $16,000 a year, like in New Jersey? Doesn't take into account. So I've never used the 1% rule. I've never seen it. I have some properties who are now at the 1% rule, but I bought them, and then 5 years later, the rents finally passed the 1%, but that return was there the whole time. So for me, I look for cash on cash return, or what Michael Zuber calls, because he's got the accounting degree, yield. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Cost to acquire isn't just your down payment. It's down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs. How much did it actually cost you to make that place rent ready from you've never seen it before to now you own it and can put tenants in it? And your profit is after principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and setting aside for repairs and maintenance and vacancy. All of that money taken out, what's left every month times 12. So you take your annual profit divided by your cost to acquire. That's the equation given at 2 hours and 21 minutes into the video, if you want to come back and see that again. I also have a short. It's like one of the only shorts on my channel. Annual profit or yield. Joshua Joseph, howdy. Hope you're well. Hope you're well too. I have a single family house hack with housemates. Awesome. Can I count it as rental income in my taxes in 2 years to lower your debt to income ratio? Claim it on your tax returns, rental income on your tax returns. They don't care if it's your house or if it's a rental. It could be a duplex where they're renting other units. It could be your primary. You will have different tax obligations, and there's a question coming up soon. So I'll wait to answer the tax question until we get to that question. But yes, rental income is rental income. Here's the problem with claiming rental income on your primary house. You may not be able to depreciate your primary house, and you might only have the standard deduction or your deduction from your interest. You might have an actual tax obligation if you claim the rental income. But if you're trying to combat debt to income issues, for me, that would be worth it. So you're going to talk to a tax pro, which is the answer when we get to the tax question here in a minute. Tim Crawford, what's up, Lumberjack?
So super excited to be here.
Nice. I appreciate you stopping in. And
I'm thrilled. I actually love it.
I would have loved to be there this last weekend. I was taking a friend to a cruise. That's a husband and wife. I dropped them off. I'm picking them up next week, but I think I'll be able to pick them up, drop them off, and jump into the second half of your live stream.
We'll be available. You know where I'll be.
So cool. Nina, thank you. Appreciate your answer. I appreciate you too. Kip Stevens, Lumberjack, the other goat.
Yeah.
Somebody was on here one time and called me La Cabrita, which if you speak this much Spanish, it means the goat. But if you speak this much Spanish, it means the little girl goat. I was like, I'm almost complimented, I think.
That's awesome.
So, Adam Lumbercrack. Oh, that's the name I should put in the edit, because I always put lumberjacked landlord.
Yeah. Maybe 20 years ago, lumberjack.
Financially jacked. Gotta say.
Now lumber flat or lumber flat.
Michelle, yay, Matt. Million. Howdy. Howdy, Dion and Matt. Cashflow Johnny Ramirez. Howdy. What's up, freaks?
The guy's grinding, man.
Ronald, I got hijacked by lumberjack. Works. He's bringing some knowledge I didn't have, so I'm glad you're here, Matt. Laura, don't chop trees without checking with your city first. Correct. In Southern California, oak trees, you have to have permits. In Washington, there's each place has their special protected whatever. My friend was sued for the city for $1,500. The city accused her of torturing the trees. It was a tree that she planted. Yeah, learn your local municipality. Sometimes they have good rules that help, and sometimes not so much.
They investigated and found out she was watering it, and they considered that waterboarding.
Probably. I mean, I invest in 2 different counties, and I would never want to call a city out by name, except Lakewood, Washington, is one I'm never going to own another rental in because. And somebody asked me the other day, I've got a great deal on Lakewood. It's fine. I'm complaining. That my problem is I'm bitching. Their rental program is stupid. Frank, howdy. What's your take on liability protection? What if the tenant sues you on one of your properties and a lawyer goes after all of your properties if they are not owned in separate entities, separate LLCs? That is a great question. On my channel, there is a video called LLC Rants, because the first thing I will say, there is absolutely no protection by having an LLC unless you have partners. The idea between limited liability company is to protect you from someone else's mistakes. You are you. You cannot protect you from your mistakes by separating your assets. In the 2 counties that I invest in, they don't just pierce the veil, which is happening more and more. Just Google that. Federal judges are just piercing veils in single member LLCs. In my 2 counties, they are using the 1996 precedents from the IRS that all LLCs are disregarded, not pierced. They're just flat out ignored. There are 3 forms of asset protection that I do suggest. LLC is not one of them. The time you need an LLC that makes sense is when you have partners, protects you from their mistakes. Or if you need to borrow something like hard money and the lender's going to require an LLC, go for it. But a lot of new investors get stopped in their tracks. So I actually get kind of upset when people say you need an LLC because it doesn't do anything. No tax benefits, no asset protection. And again, no tax benefits. That's the one that most people also don't understand. So the first form of asset protection is homeowners insurance. You're going to have homeowners insurance, whether you have a mortgage or not, whether you live there or whether it's a rental. You want to have at least, in my opinion, $300,000 slip, fall, or injury coverage, and then full replacement value of the property, not just make the lender whole by paying what's left on the mortgage. You want them to replace the building, so you're made whole. So it costs a little bit more. My duplexes are like $400 to $500 a year. My single family is like $350. My triplex and fourplex are like $800 and $900. And my fourplex is so much because I live there. When you move out of a house hack, let your insurance know, because your insurance should go down because they're no longer insuring your personal items there. So that's the first thing, is homeowners insurance. I then followed up once I got to 4 properties. I could have done it at 3, but at 4, I got an umbrella policy. So if any insurance claim goes above the $300,000 in injury, then the $2 million insurance policy kicks in. The second form of asset protection is leverage. The banks are in first position on 6 of my 7 properties. So mortgages, the lenders get the first position. People aren't going to take that because the bank owns it. Third form of asset protection, and the most important, even though I list it last, fix stuff. Like, be proactive, do annual walkthroughs, listen to tenants. They complain about a loose banister, that's fixed today. They complain about a squeaky door, that's fixed when you get there. Like, anything that's safety sensitive, you are taking care of. So that's my 3 forms of asset protection. You are going to be sued, whether you have a rental or not. We're in a litigious country. You're going to get sued over something. And an LLC is not going to help you in any way whatsoever unless you have partners. Hopefully I didn't just do the whole video for the LLC.
It was close, but it was good.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, nice cliff notes. That was good.
Thank you. Million. And hang on. Frank, thank you so much for coming to the live stream. That's a question that comes up often. And I do kind of get, I don't want to say upset, but I'm in a lot of the BiggerPockets forums. I'm in the BiggerPockets Facebook groups, and I see a lot of people just go, you have to have an LLC. So how do you name it? How do you pay yourself from it? How do you get lending? Like, all of these barriers that come into a place that a new investor doesn't need. Once you have 5 or 10 or 15 and you want LLCs, you want to separate it and have different bank accounts because you can't commingle the funds, like, go for it. You now have the experience and the cash flow to handle stupidly adding complexity to your business for no reason whatsoever. But that brand new investor, that's who I'm trying to talk to. An LLC is a barrier you just don't need. Million, howdy. Working on smoke remediation, painting, kills paint now. Nice. I've got a little chart of smoking remediation that I do. The hardest part is getting the goat. Scott, howdy. Do you do your own taxes? This is a question I saw about the CPA. The second you own a rental property, I would hire a tax professional. There are different types of depreciation. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to have to know what they are. You have scheduled, bonus, amortized, like all of that, the CPA knows and understands, and it's worth a couple of $100 more a year that it's going to take for doing your tax prep. And then in some places, that means they'll actually represent you if you're audited. In mine, you have to pay like $150 a year to have that extra insurance, to where the one time I was audited, they handled everything and I basically sent a few emails. But no, I would not do my own taxes if I owned a rental property. I would not also do my roof. I wouldn't go into the electric panel. Like, I'll swap out a light switch, right? So I'll gather my receipts. I'll fill out the spreadsheet, but I send the spreadsheet to the CPA. I hire the electrician for in the panel. I hire the roofer for on the roof. That was actually a good question. Thanks, Scott. Ring Seeker, howdy. Howdy, Dion and Matt. I have just started my journey and started making offers in my market. I am looking for 8% cash on cash after setting aside for maintenance and vacancy to get that I am offering at
That's awesome.
either list price or 2 to 5% below. However, I have made 8 offers in the last 2 weeks without success. Should I just reduce my cash on cash expectation to get started? No, you're not at the point yet where I would reduce my cash on cash expectation. The math for me is I look at a little over 100 deals to make 20 offers to get 1 accepted, knowing what I'm doing. Those first few years, I would make a lot more than 20 offers to get 1 accepted. And if you lower your thing and get the next one accepted, did you overpay? Are you narrowing your margins? Are you slowing down your next investment? What's area average cash flow? What are you able to actually find? And here's the math on that. 80% of the deals are going to lose money. That's been my track record. About 80% of them are overpriced and just you're not going to cash flow at all. 20%, you might get some cash flow. What does those ones average out to? That's what I would consider my area average. And then the one that I'm going to make the offer on is going to be the best one of those.
Yeah, don't be in a rush. Patience.
Yeah.
Patience. Wait, you unless you have enough money to do 5 deals. But if you don't, if you only have money to do 1 deal or maybe 2, you just need to make sure you get a great deal. That's all.
Nicholas Lumberjack, I know you like to leverage when scaling. What's the LTV you used while continuing to grow safely for people starting to scale?
70 LTV. I'll cash out at 70 LTV. I have a bunch of properties that I own in the 50s and there wasn't enough meat on the bone to refi those. Or they were still in a place where I would take a penalty because they were commercial property. I was going to take a penalty if I refied them. And I was also going to have to refi from like a 3.75 rate to like a 6. So I kept them at the 3.75 and just left the equity in there. But yeah, usually 70 is the number. I figure if the market goes down 20, it costs me 8 points to sell it between transfer taxes and fees and all this other stuff. Then I'm still getting a check at the closing table. Even if the market goes down 20, I got to kick in my 8. Then I'm still at 2% where I walk with some money, but I'm not writing a check.
Yep. And I like the way you worded your question, Nick.
Well done. Mm-hmm.
When it's growing, what percentage? There's a chronology to your investing. So Matt and you're still growing. So 70% LTV makes sense. You're getting the most appreciation on the largest amount, but you can handle the downside and walk away, sell an asset without having to write a check. All of that makes sense. When you get to the point of retiring, like I was at, my goal was to go from 70%. That was my goal as I was growing to, I wanted to be at 70. I thought I would drop to around 50. I'm at around 40. So I think I'm even under leveraged for being retired. So I might use my VA loan one day, buy another 4plex with nothing down and bring myself up closer to that 50% overall leveraged position, not looking at each property by themselves, but is it overall?
Yeah. As you get bigger too, banks look at you holistically. They don't look at a property. They
Right.
look at everything.
Yeah. So I was just looking at that DSCR loan a few months ago and did the personal financial statement. And
Yeah.
you guys go, well, you're trying to borrow. It was like a $1.1 million. And I said, you need to have your net worth needs to be 50% of the loan. And I was like, so I would need like 550,000, just 3 million count.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yep. Exactly right.
it was actually funny. It's in the video. I wanted to edit it, but it was just too short a clip. The one guy shows the other guy the net worth, and you should see his face because he's trying to hope I'm at 50, 550,000 so I could do the loan. And then he sees the numbers, and I just watched what his face did. Wanted to like zoom in on it.
I think I remember that video.
Tom Kine. Hi, Matt. Ring seeker. That was the second half of your question. Rob, Matt, how's Vegas hunt going?
Vegas hunt's going well. They keep on adding inventory. I love it. There's more and more deal. I mean, I wish that were my investing market, because holy Toledo, the deals that are coming on there are nuts.
So you're looking at buying a single family house to snowbird and then short-term rental when you're not there?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it kind of, I know Zoob is weird about that. That's not really my thing. I know he would never want anybody in his house. I don't care. And so I just haven't figured it out yet. I think the big thing for us is we're trying to kind of be in an area where, so Desert Shores is one area where it's basically like just outside of Summerlin, which is our primary, but Desert Shores has a bunch of like tiny lakes and things like that in it. But yeah, it's amazing watching this amount of stuff coming on that I'm seeing coming on. There was one property where I literally called my agent, who's Brian Lebo, famous Vegas agent. Vegas, he's an agent to the stars and me. But super nice guy, really smart, knows the market, been there over 20 years. But yeah, there's just some of the deals that are coming out are great. And the funny thing is, you know, again, I keep on looking at them. They're still not less expensive than they were last year. They've come down a little bit off the peak, but they're still not anywhere near as cheap as they were last year. And forget about it if it's 3 years ago. Like there's a house that was sold 3 years ago for $550, had no additional work put in. It started on the market at $1,050, $1,050,000. Then it was down to $950. They only paid $550 3 years ago.
Right. So it's still up. Right.
The guy's still in the money, 400 grand.
That's what I keep telling a lot of people is a 25% drop. So let's say that went down another 250,000.
Sure.
It's still up.
It's still up. The guy's still going to make $250,000 in living in a place for 3 years. It's like selling trucks for more than what you paid for them 3 years later.
Yeah.
That only happened this year.
So when you buy,
yeah, let
me know the area.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm probably going to go around that and buy a place about half the value of what the one you're looking at.
You don't need 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms.
I don't need 5 bedrooms, right? I need maybe 2.
There was a really good deal for one. It was a bigger house. It was like 2,500 square feet. But it was only a 2-bed, 3 bath. So it was kind of like an interesting, and it was like 500. And it was in a great area. So that house was a steal. And I just kind of looked at Ashley and I go, well, we just stuck all the kids in the same room. She goes, that's not going to work. I go,
just convert one of the bathrooms. Just put a bed.
Yes, exactly.
Plywood on the bathtub.
Exactly. Whichever kid's bad is going to sleep in the bathtub.
Right. Okay. Scott, please talk about tax strategies to save taxes. So the most important thing with real estate investing, Scott, when it comes to taxes is depreciation. Mm-hmm. And here's just quick numbers. Last year, I profited, made money, $128,000. Because of depreciation, I carried forward an $8,900 loss. It looks like on paper, I'm in real estate lost almost $9,000. So I get to carry that $8,900 to next year and write it off of whatever my profit is. So you would think if I do that, how do you get the next loan? I mean, a bank's going to look at you and say, you're losing money every year. Why would we lend you money? They're not stupid. That's not true. They take depreciation out no matter what their intellect is. So they're going to see your actual cash flow. What you have more control of as an investor is your write-offs. If you buy something for your rental business, you can write it off. There's no benefit to not taking depreciation. If you ever sell, the IRS is going to assume, it's just assumed, you took maximum depreciation every year, even if you show on your tax records you didn't. So there's no benefit to not doing it because lenders will take it out when you go to buy the next property. But you do have control of your write-offs. You do not have to claim all of your write-offs on your taxes. So if you somehow had enough write-offs to where you lost money, you might not have to claim them all. Talk with your CPA on what they're comfortable with. The wrong question that I hear a lot is this a write-off about anything? Is this pen? Is this book? Is this trip a write-off? The right question is, how do I make this a write-off? When you buy your pen, is it to do contracts? When you take your trip, is it to look at markets? Is it to talk to other lenders and investors in an area? Is it to go to a meetup, find a local REI meetup? Makes the whole entire trip a write-off. If you're going to go to lunch with somebody, did you talk real estate? Did you talk your business? Did you do work while you were there? How do I make this a write-off is the right question. And that doesn't mean everything can be a write-off. You're going to say how, and then can I? So yeah, tax strategies for me is the ABB. Always be buying. So even though I am financially free and don't need to buy another rental property, the next one I buy resets the depreciation schedule on that property. And again, offsets rental profit. Do you have any specific, the strategy that you could talk about, Matt, that you did this last year for the first time, doing a cost segregation study because one of you was a real estate professional?
We did cost seg, bonus depreciation. It wiped out a ton of income. It was awesome. But real estate professional is an actual tax designation. It's not a license that you can earn, just a tax designation. 750 hours. You can't have a W-2. So you have to do 750 hours. It's basically like I think it's 14 hours a week. And for Ashley, we spend a lot of that time together, like reviewing things. And so it's a little bit challenging to get to that. But we were able to hit it last year because we bought 10 buildings last year, and we had rehabs on a bunch of them. So we were spending that 15 to 20 hours a week. It was truly a part-time job last year for her, just coordinating a lot of that stuff, making sure to follow up on things, inheriting a lot of tenants. And then this year we've already done 7 deals, and we'll probably do another 3 or 4 before the end of the year. So we'll probably do 10 last year, 10 this year. And so that's when you're doing that many, it's just one of those things. But I can't claim the real estate professional because I have a W-2 still currently, in case you were wondering why mine says really not retired and why I get pictures of the Pink Panther. And so, yeah, so I'm still not a real estate professional, even though I spend 750 hours a year doing it. So does Ashley. And yeah, that's really kind of for when if you are a real estate broker. The biggest challenge that you're going to have in being a real estate professional is that you're going to have a tough time getting to the 14 hours a week if you have one rental.
So I'll say this before anybody attacks you in the comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're welcome. Come at us. You can have a W-2 for cost segregation. And here's the actual verbiage from my CPA.
Real estate professional, yeah.
So you can be a real estate professional as long as you meet 2 criteria. The first one is you have to work 751 hours, so more than 750 in real estate. And the second is you have to work more hours in real estate than you do in your W-2. And then they put this caveat in there. However, no one has ever seen somebody with a W-2 who got audited also qualify for the status of real estate professional. So the rule is written to where you could, it's just never happened. So your W-2 would have to be like you work 10 hours a week in your W-2 or something like that. So that's why most people in your case wait until one spouse does qualify and then you take advantage of it.
Yeah, there's 87,000 people that care more about that now.
Right. William Smith, howdy. Yep, I spent 20 years in the military. We normally look at rent where BAH will cover rent and the utilities. Yep. Or I have a guy in the Air Force, his BAH is like 2,100 and his rent is like 1,350 or something. So he's just pocketing the rest. I'm totally fine with that. His rent for that unit size that's normal for that area. I'm not going to charge more because he's making more. Nina, heard there is a government program where you rent to veterans. They pay more rent than Section 8. Do you have any experience with that program? I don't. I've heard about it recently too. It's a housing voucher program for service members with a certain disability. I'm not sure if it's 100% or if there's a certain rating required, but I know that that's a thing too. I have not looked into. My Section 8 tenants, I have 3 right now. One of them is a veteran on fixed income. So he could probably qualify for that other program, but the rent is what I want. So Tom, I consider what an E6 BAH is for Class C. Okay, cool. Stonk Squeezer 69, howdy. Stock gonna run the $20 plus and fill that massive gap. Next top Reddit squeeze. Seems spammy to me. I don't know. Is there a sentence? Was that an actual sentence, Matt? Did that mean?
It was actually a sentence, but it is
okay. Yeah. I started this with I don't know anything about stocks, and then I explained dollar cost averaging and was corrected. Eric took back a message to make me lose sleep tonight. Always wonder forever and ever what was said. Eric, if the binder strategy doesn't go well, how are you determining the increase? Never had it happen where it didn't go well. I have. It is a conversation. I have gone, what do you think is fair? And they suggested a number that didn't make sense. And then I explained one more time. I said, that number might make sense to you, but look at the gap between that, what that is. Literally another couple of sentences in the same meeting, and then the rent was adjusted. If the binder strategy doesn't go well, just don't renew the lease. Exactly. This is your rental. You are running a business. You are giving them a chance to be educated and understand what rents are. And you're explaining that you're looking for their input. If their input is, I want to rip you off, you find a new tenant. That'd be my answer.
Yep.
Nicholas, hey guys, how does refinancing work after moving from a house hack? Do you give your higher rate now as landlords, same as cash out refis? I have never refinanced because I moved out of a house hack. Some people will because they're using FHA and they want to use FHA loan again, and you have to refinance out to reuse another one. But remember, FHA doesn't mean first-time home buyer. It means your credit sucks and your debt to income sucks. Or maybe you're trying to get a triplex or a fourplex with that low down payment. It's the other time it makes sense. So if you refinance out, you're looking at, it could impact your interest rate to what is current. When you're refinancing the house, this is a good question for you, Matt. I don't know if you've ever refinanced as you're moving out of a house hack. I never have.
Every time.
If you refinance to move out of the house hack, you're not committing to living there for a year. So you're going to get that little 0.5 point bump because it's an investment property and not owner occupied.
You do it when you're still in there.
Yeah. So you refinance when you're in there. But if you're in there and you're committing to another year, you're staying in that house hack for another year.
Not on a refi.
Not on a refi.
Nope. On a purchase you are, but not on a refi.
Cool. So always check with your lender and see what their requirements are.
Yeah, 100%.
So I've not refinanced because of house hack.
Yeah, so I have refied. I mean, the other thing too now though is that, to your point, FHA is really about bad debt or bad DTI, lower income or lower credit score. Right now you can buy a fourplex with a conventional loan at 5%. That program,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah, totally agree. So I wouldn't, the case for doing the refi is don't do it because you're trying to reuse your FHA. The difference is 1.5 points. That wouldn't be a reason for me to do it. And if your rate has any age on it whatsoever, you're losing the years that you had pay down, but more likely you're losing a 2.5 or a 2.75 or a 3.0 mortgage for a 5. I wouldn't do that.
Right. A lot of times the refinance happened because somebody's equity position got to the point where you can lose the mortgage insurance. That makes more sense than reusing FHA.
100%. Yep, totally.
Tom Kahn, Matt, can you get your first investment at a distance owner finance near Dion? Can you house hack and buy a property near me? So that's what I'm looking at doing. I'm looking at buying in Vegas next to Matt and doing owner occupied lending on it, because I will be there at least 3 months and 1 day, which is what is required to have state citizenship. That's my plan anyway.
Yeah, we'll be there 4 months a year. That's our plan currently is 4 months. But yeah, we haven't figured. There's going to be people that are going to need to sell, and the inventory the first week in May when I started looking, the inventory was 2,200. The inventory is now 9,000.
Yeah. So again, let me know where you're going. Like I said, got about 500,000. Summerlin or Desert Shores, and they're next to each other. Summerlin's a great spot, and it's the largest centrally planned housing development in the States. I will have to check it out. Maybe I'll take a trip down there.
Originally owned by Howard Hughes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool. Laura,
you can tell what the property's worth by what street it's on. Like what range it's in. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What range it's in. It's kind of crazy. Very centrally planned, like X number of houses, playground, stores. Like it's really centrally. That's why we kind of love it. It's kind of
nice. Cool. I will have to check it out.
Yeah.
When are you guys doing your trip there?
We're figuring that out now.
Okay. Well, let me know.
I'm thinking like end of September, early October, because it starts to get cold in Siberia.
That'll probably be my third trip down there. Sure. Laura, thanks, Dion and Matt. I asked the question before Matt showed up. Otherwise, I would have addressed it, of course, both of you. Great timing. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Tom, Michelle would like more information on owner financing as the owner. So I really recommend Kris Krohn. I mean, I try to recommend people that I know, but I like his information. That's what he does. He does the lease option. So he sells to the tenants. He gets more than what the rent would be. He gets a down payment. If it ever defaults, he gets the property back. You own a note, you could sell the note. Like there's a ton of things. And his information on Kris Krohn with K, Kris and Krohn with a K, Krohn. Great information on how to do that. Ronald, where can I purchase the Lumberjacks course in the future? That's where it is.
True.
Sorry, it's not out yet.
No, not out yet. We've got it's going, and the other thing too is people really have to know what it's about. I think you and I both agree. Mike's got buying covered, right? He's really got buying covered. We'll have some general stuff about that. But my real focus is really going to be on the day-to-day process of managing units, managing tenants, managing work lists, things like that. So really kind of the working title was, oh shit, now I'm a landlord. That was the working title. Just because I think that's where I struggled the most. The figuring out what to buy was really easy for me. The figuring out how to manage was really hard for me. So working with tenants, having EQ, because EQ doesn't often go with IQ. And so that was a challenging part for me, and putting in processes that made it very easy and straightforward of how to dynamically interact with tenants and manage repairs and the type of stuff that you do to increase the value of a unit, and just a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking we all complement each other really well. And I'm not going to be covering what Zuber covers. I'm not going to be covering what you cover. I'm going to do the binder course as a free thing on the platform, so that'll always be available.
Yep.
My strategy when I make the course, which I'm still not sure. I think people who want to grow massive portfolios shouldn't take my course. They should take your course and Mike's course, I think. But if somebody has how do I make work optional with almost the least amount of rentals in the laziest way possible? That isn't going to fit into a title, but that's what the course is going to be about.
I was going to say,
Strictly
that's an amazing website name.
Yeah.
I mean,
Emily, howdy. How long did it take you for the 25% down payment? Here's the chronology. 2 years for the first 5% down payment. That was not making a lot of money, but I was working overtime, had some side hustles, and I had rented out a house. The first year I lost money because I didn't know what I was doing. Second year I made like $100 or $200 a month. It wasn't a lot, and I did not understand rentals yet. So 2 years to save up the first 5% down, then 2 years with increased income, reduced living expenses, better cash flow on the house, more side hustles. 2 years for the 25% down, then a year and a half for 25% down, then paid off a mortgage in a year, and then a year for a 20% down on a fourplex. Like, it starts to speed up really fast after that 5-year part. The first 4 years, super slow.
Suck. Yeah.
Yeah. Ape love ape. Ape together strong. Howdy. It's got to be another stock getting into sports betting. They're going to have a massive short squeeze. Reddit Wall Street. Bets is saying 5 to 5. They're getting creative on the spammy stuff here. I think what's better? I think I'd prefer porn links to stock links. Kip Stevens. Money for alien voodoo juice. Thank you.
Porn links are harder to read.
Right. They're easier to block because it doesn't make you read half of it, which is going to sound great. Because in Futureland, this is going to be in a podcast. I'm going to take all of my live streams and make a podcast.
Awesome.
So they won't at least get to see the porn links.
Yeah.
Thank you for the money for the alien voodoo juice. I appreciate it. And remember, Alien Vodka does not actually sponsor my channel. They just make the videos possible. Sam, howdy. Nicholas, do you watermark your vacancy photos when advertising? Yes. And I'll tell you how. Do you disclose the address when advertising? Yes, because I watermark the pictures. Ever worry about somebody stealing the appliances when you are disclose address? No, because mine are small multifamily. If I had a single family house out in the middle of nowhere all by itself, I'd probably concern myself with that. Put in Wi-Fi, add Arlo cameras with a notifying with the app on my phone. So yes, I watermark. I use Canva, CANVA.com. It's free. And you just go in and you change your text to transparent. You put it in your email, you turn it at an angle, and you put it all over your picture. And you take the transparency level down until it looks like a watermark. Very easy to do.
Why do you do that?
So if you list on a platform like apartments.com, maybe it's great in Siberia, but here in Washington, we got a lot of scammers. They stole $300 million from our unemployment. When the COVID thing happened, we lost literally $350 million. So someone will take the picture of your property, they'll list it, and they'll say, I'm on vacation in wherever.
Got it.
Your deposit is only $500. The rent is 80% of what area average is. Send me the deposit. And when you get there, I'll either give you the codes to the door, which they don't have, or they'll tell you to drill out and replace the locks because they're on vacation. and people fall for it.
Oh my word.
So enough watermarks blended into the picture at different angles, your email is on the picture.
Yeah.
So it's too much work for them to
Yep.
take it,
Got
make
it.
their email match, try to get it out, because it doesn't do layers off Canva. When you get it out, it's just one JPEG.
Sure.
So I haven't had that happen, but I know people who have had it happen. One of them had an Airbnb. There was a tenant in the Airbnb legally who called and said, someone else is here, because they had taken their ad and just made a mock ad on it.
Wow. Hasn't happened here in Cow Hampshire.
Not yet. It will.
Probably.
Sam, love seeing you guys go live together and the two perspective answering questions. Me too. I appreciate it. I think Matt knows a ton of things I don't. Like,
back at you.
how to be happily married. That ADU guy. Howdy. Always great stuff, guys. Love to see you two teamed up. Just think of all the fun you guys will have when Matt pulls the plug on his 9 to 5. Exactly.
I'm gonna have so much time.
I you know what I had to remind myself of today?
What?
Stop playing VR Skyrim soon enough before your live stream so you don't have VR goggle impressions. That was my challenge today, so I hope you can handle the struggles of being retired. Johnny Tax Flow, sorry, blended that. Cash Flow Ramirez. Texas is 100 at 10 p.m. Awesome. Joshua, you guys, howdy. So funny. Thank you. I appreciate that. Legacy, howdy. 107 in West Arizona.
Oh.
Today, I think it got to 81 today, but it was under 70 until noon.
That's awesome.
So like this was a not till later did it get warm.
Yeah. We had the same thing here. My wife loves the heat, so that's the agreement that we made. That's why she wants Vegas.
Oh, nice.
I was like, not interested in Phoenix. I don't want to go to Florida. So Vegas it is.
I liked Florida. I've been to Phoenix a bunch. I had friends that lived down there and they were in Scottsdale. Every time I went to visit, it was like being on a compound. I don't know that I really want, I don't know.
We knew too many people in Florida that I didn't want to hang out with.
Too many people and it's 2-minute traffic lights. 2-minute traffic lights.
Yeah. It's honestly, it was for us, it was just too many people that we already knew. And we were like, we want to get away from you up here. We don't want to hang.
Nice.
Hey, while you're in town. Nope.
There you go. Sam, speaking of Texas, it never gets to 120 degrees here. Really? In the 90s, most summertime. How do you buy a house that is not move-in ready and needs work? Conventional lenders usually don't lend on these, and I don't want to go the hard money path. Matt.
Conventional lenders will lend on stuff like that. You can do a couple of things. You can do a 203K loan. You can do a 203K streamline loan. I've done both of those. A 203K loan is much like a construction loan, where you basically come up with a budget. It has to be, you get two appraisals from the same appraiser. You get what's called an as-is price, and then you get what's called an as-complete price. So you can actually get a 203K, and then the 203K streamline is a little bit easier, and that budget on the 203K regular can be any percentage. A 203K streamline is $35,000. So it's basically whatever updates you can get done for 35 grand. But I would look at a 203K or a 203K streamline that doesn't get you hard money, and you're still getting your same rate. That's what I would do. But yeah, conventional, and usually the other thing too that people will say is if any work's needed. That's not true. It's something called a C5 designation. If it gets designated a C5, that deal is not going to close as an FHA loan, period. And the C5 is basically a condition 5, which means like cracking plaster, like up in the Northeast, we have like cracking plaster or maybe an active leak in the basement, things like that. I actually had a deal fall apart because it was deemed a C5. And so I went back to the sellers. I got a $10,000 credit and I just closed with cash. And then I refied it after I finished the work.
So Sam, the streamline is a good option if you can get everything done for 35. The thing to understand with the 203K loan, if you don't do streamlined, is you need to find the contractor that understands how it works, is not busy enough to accept it. So I would, find that commitment before you get the lender, because the contractor has to work with the bank, complete a portion, show proof it's completed, get paid for it. Work on the next project, complete it, get paid for it. And so the contractors that are familiar with it can do it, but the busier contractors are, the less likely they are to commit to doing that. But if building slows, it's easier.
It'll be much easier in the next 12 months than it has been in the last 2 years for sure.
Exactly. Kip Stevens, 2 million. My painter is sitting next to me and they use shellac primer. Kills won't get rid of the smell. So there's two different versions of kills. One is water-based and one is oil-based. The oil-based traps in the smell. It's one of the strategies I use. Shellac primer probably is oil-based. I don't know, but it probably is. And that's why it would trap in the smell.
Yeah.
Beth, howdy. It's a twofer. And Beth is going to come over and so I'm committing her to this now. You're welcome, Beth. I got mics without wires and it comes with 2. So we're going to record some videos on the slides.
I like
and
it.
I want to see how Beth handles that and
Beth's
talks
awesome.
real estate.
I know Beth is going to crush that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And then Ring Sinker took back a message to mess with me too. Beth, I love the second home short-term rental strategy when done right. Me too. North Colorado Dawn. That is what I was talking about on the video that Matt and Millennial Mike did earlier. James J. Howdy. Beginner investor here. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. I found a property that has an 8.4% cash on cash return. I've saved enough to pay all cash. Would you recommend all cash or go 25% down and perhaps find a second property? I would, and I hesitate to say always at anything because there's always a situation. I would always use leverage. I've looked at buying cash because I'm financially free and got to put the money somewhere and whatever makes the most sense. But if you buy it all cash, let's say you paid $100,000. So you can either put 25,000 down, maybe look for another place, or you can put 100,000 down and buy the property. And then it goes up 10% next year. We have 10% appreciation. In one scenario, you've gained $10,000 on a $100,000 purchase. You've gained 10%. On the other, you've gained $10,000 on a $25,000 purchase. That's math guy. That's like 50%, right? It's not quite 50. It's a
40. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 40% return. That's huge. So I would go the leverage route. You have asset protection because the bank is in first position. You're gaining appreciation on multiples of what you invested. You're experiencing tenant paying down the mortgage. A lot of reasons why I prefer to buy with a mortgage and I don't actually ever want to pay off a mortgage. I might because there's nothing better to do with the money at the time. But when we're investing and when we're growing is very different than when we are retired. So when you're in growth phase, I would always use leverage. There have been times where, Matt, you've used cash because it made sense. Like in 2012 and 13, when lenders just disappeared and you couldn't borrow, there was an option. But if you have the option right now, James, leverage all the way.
Leverage.
And 25% down, brilliant. 0% down VA loan on an investment property, maybe not so much. You might be over leveraged. But 25%, I would recommend that every time.
Yep.
Mike, howdy. What is a rent box? Lumberjack?
So a rent box is basically one of the challenges of working your numbers is that you understand what market rents are. And so one of the challenges with understanding what market rents are is people just say, oh, well, this market, it's this. It might not be that. For an A, it might, for an A that's in, so for an A quality unit that might be in a B area, it might be $1,800, but for a B quality in a B area, it might be $1,600. And so there is variation there. And that's what will make you a better investor is tracking what things are renting for in what areas. So I have 3 different towns or cities that I do work in. There are good, bad, and amazing places in all 3 of those towns. And so I not only grade the area A, B, C, because if it's D, it's not on my list, but I'm already grading A, B, C. And then I'm grading the quality of the unit, A, B, C. How good's the unit? Because you could have something that's, like I said, an A in a B area that's 18, but a B in a B area is 16. Well, if I'm buying something that's already completely done in a B area, or it's a C in a B area that I can then improve a little bit and bring it up to a B, then I know I can bring it up $200, $250 a month. So it's really about understanding exactly what the rent is for the asset that you're either buying and what you're going to be able to rent it out for, or it's for your existing units. So I added over $100,000 of cash flow to my balance sheet this year only by raising rents, and that was only by running a rent box.
So there's a simplified version of not knowing what an A or a B or any of that is, and thinking you have a rental because you're starting out, you only have one or two, you know your area. Is it a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom? Those all rent for a different amount. So knowing that amount for that number of bedrooms helps. In some areas, on-street parking, off-street parking, carport, garage, all rent for different amounts. Ironically, in Washington state, a carport will garner more rent than a garage will. Garages become storage. Carports actually get used because it rains so much, people want their car covered, but they don't want to have to do garage door. So you have to kind of know your local area as to what works best, and specifically where you're at. I invest in 2 counties. In one area, I have 2 bedrooms with garages that rent for $1,500. I have another that has no carport, no garage, but off-street parking, and the 2 bedrooms rent for $1,800. So you just have to know your areas, because knowing your rent box, knowing what the type of property you're looking at buying or what your rent should be on your existing, helps you make decisions on what you buy in the future.
Yep, 100%. And you can actually track the stuff that's listed where you're going to list your properties. I usually list on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. 99% of my tenants come from those.
James J. For clarification, my personal goal is eventually reaching 4 to 5 fully paid properties to reach financial freedom. Thanks. Love your channel. Cool. That's not a bad goal. Tiffany Thomas. One of the reasons why she has the 3 rentals and has Tiffany Thomas, your financial mentor. Got to remember her name every time. Make sure I get it right. She paid off 2 of the properties. So 2 paid off properties renting by the room cash flows a lot compared to 2 properties rented by the whole property with a mortgage. So when she retired with 3, yes, there was a strategy to it. Sam, also James, my brother has 10 paid off rentals. And the first 3 years of me investing, and me and my brother really get along, he called me a moron 100 times because I was buying properties with mortgages. At about the 5-year mark, he started asking questions. And now at 10 year, and while he is retired on his rentals, I haven't heard the moron term in a while.
Was he also buying crypto?
No. There's a flip phone, I think. He's a great life. He travels. He has side-by-sides and quads and Sea-Doos. And
awesome.
We've spent a month in Colombia and a month in Thailand. And I mean, he's totally doing life right. It's just he never bought with a mortgage.
Sure.
So buying with a mortgage must be stupid. That's how our family works. Sam, what do you guys think of Frigidaire fridges? I think I have a couple.
Yep,
I don't have a problem with them.
Yep, they're pretty good. Just you only want to watch with Frigidaire because there are a few models that they have that are rebranded Samsung models. So you can just look up whenever you find a model that you like, just look it up, reference it online, make sure it's not a rebranded fridge.
I actually bet that nobody gets Mitch's question right 2 times here. For me, I don't know about you, Matt, but Mitch says, howdy, Mitch. Did you guys know that Matt and Dion were childhood actors? I was not a star, but an actor. Okay, can you name the characters and TV shows they were on? So good luck. Let me know in the comments. I can tell you that in one, I was acting with Jared Leto, Jake Gyllenhaal, Selma Blair, and John McKinley. And the other one was Sylvester Stallone, Mickey Rourke, Rachel A. Cook. Yeah. So, Keith, the principle that the buyer alone is responsible for checking the quality and suitability of goods before a purchase is made, caveat emptor, still applies when you are buying your house. I said all those words. I'm sure it sounded like something. I'm gonna have to read it again to understand what you said there, Keith. Principle that the buyer alone is responsible for checking the quality. So due diligence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Nice.
Yep.
Much way smarter words to say due diligence. Ring seeker. Can you expand on the 80% are bad deals and 20% are good? Do people actually buy deals that don't cash flow all day long?
Yeah.
There's several reasons why people buy deals that don't cash flow. 1, As an investor, our biggest competition is home buyers, and they don't buy for cash flow. They buy based on payment. How much can I afford to pay every month? That's how much house I can buy. Their lenders and their agents actually talk them into buying the most they can qualify for. Let's find a way to tweak your DTI so you can qualify for more to get the bigger house, because they're paid on percentages. So they want the bigger deal done. So the tier for buying goes home buyer, investor, flipper, wholesaler. So the home buyer buys on payment, the investor buys on yield. So there are people who buy deals that we would say have negative cash flow because they're deploying a huge 1031 where they're looking at their initial investment 30 years ago for 20 grand and buying $1 million place now with what they don't consider to be any of their money because it's all 1031. So to us negative cash flow, but they have a huge equity position in there, so they're actually getting cash flow. Other people will buy properties that lose money because they're looking for a safe store of money, which is why Canada actually extended their 2 years, so it's now 4 years long, where foreign investors can't invest in Canada because there are countries where they might be having a banking issue right now, where people are looking at buying properties and they don't care if they lose or ever make a penny because their country's currency is losing so much value that money sitting in a property here, even flatline, not making money that never appreciates, is a safer store of money.
Yeah.
We'll never know the reasons why they bought. People do all the time. That's why 80% of deals are bad. And a lot of it is wish list. There are people who would never sell a property, but they're like, wow, prices are super high. I'll try. If I get that, great. If not, I'll leave it on there for a while and eventually I'll take it off. So. Jay Hayes, and we're going to get through these last ones and wrap up because it's getting late in Siberiaville.
I can handle it.
Book title and suggestion. Howdy, Jay. Blue Crayon Investing. I could put the Eagle Globe and Anchor on the front, and I'm betting a few people would understand. Bolo. Howdy. How's Hem Lane treating you? Good. I had a tenant within 6 hours. I had like 5 qualified apply. Hit a lot of platforms. My only critique of Hem Lane, which will come out in my review, which will be a short review, is it worked great. I put the information in once, hit one button, went on like 30 platforms within 6 hours, had my place rented. The critique is Hem Lane doesn't market themselves very well. Most people don't know that Hem Lane has 3 tiers. The first one has the lowest price, the mid price, the highest price. For the lowest one, you can list your properties, collect rents. The middle one, you can schedule your handyman or use their handyman on a nationwide platform. And the highest one, you can actually have leasing agents go out and do this. And I'm going to research the 3 tiers because I'm just using the lowest one. But I know people who have looked into Hem Lane and watched videos and don't know what they do. So that's what their issue is. Nicholas, Dion, you're always great on stats. What % of REI actually have at least 4 properties? Real estate investors. That is a good one. I don't know. I know that over 90% of real estate agents never own 1 rental. I don't know that one. I'll have to look that up. What % of real estate investors actually have at least 4 properties? I know the majority of real estate investors are mom and pop still, even though the investors they were like 11% the last time I checked. I think it's growing slowly.
It is.
Yeah. You said it perfectly in your live stream on Sunday. You have to have one or the other. People are in panic. Prices are going to crash. So I don't want to buy now because I'm going to lose value. I'm going to wait to buy because of more buying power. Whatever. If interest rates go up, your prices go down. Then the other people are screaming. All of the investors, the iBuyers, the stone whatevers, and the cash door whatever, are buying all the properties and we can't buy any.
Mm-hmm.
So is there so much demand prices are going to go up, or is there going to be a crash? Like, pick a lane.
So pick one.
Yeah. Daniel Rodriguez. Howdy. I currently have a duplex under contract, 11% cash on cash return. During inspection, foundation issues came up, fixed about $20,000. How would you use that fear on the seller to negotiate or even better deal? So you have the inspection. I don't know that I'd go to the stage of actually getting an appraisal, or not an appraisal, an estimate of the repairs, although you might want to do that to protect yourself to know if it's going to be 20 or 50,000.
Yeah.
But then submit, so know your area. Some agents can't do this, aren't allowed to submit parts of the inspection to the seller. In my area, since I'm not an agent, I can submit that. So I sent the pictures and images and the write-ups from the inspector of what needed to be done. If you think it'll be about 20,000, but you think there will be some estimates that are 15 and some that are 30, I would say this might cost $30,000 to repair. How about we meet in the middle? Can we adjust the price or get that? What's that thing that you get? Not a concession, where they actually fix it before you close.
Yeah.
If you paid $20,000 and you had your current price and the seller wouldn't budge and wouldn't negotiate at all, what happens to your return? Is it still good enough to pursue? I've done things where I knew I had to fix things. I bought the fourplex. I knew it needed a roof. Right? I did negotiate the price down about $10,000, but that only impacted my down payment by, so doing 20% down, $2,000. So you have negotiation power, but that doesn't mean that you have to go with the deal, and it doesn't mean the seller has to acquiesce. Your lender might require something happen before you close, though, depending on the type of loan you're getting. So that's where you might run into some issues.
Yep.
So
I
what
would,
would be
I would take those pictures in that description, make sure that they have it. The only concern that I have is who said it was 20 grand, because I find building inspectors to be extremely unknowledgeable in how much things cost. So I would want to know, because if the building inspector says, or if the inspector that you hired to do that says it's going to be this, the best thing that you can do is contact a couple of people and just say, here are the pictures from an inspection report that I just did. What do you think ballpark wise are going to be? I've literally had inspectors say that's a $20,000 problem. When I was selling a property and I said, okay, if I take care of that problem, we can still close. They're like, yeah, absolutely. I fixed it for $2 grand.
Right. So get maybe actual estimates, right?
Yeah.
There's more to his question I didn't see. Cash flow is currently $800 as is with price reduction and credit. I was thinking of ways to get away more than $20,000 off the price due to the risk I'm taking on. Others follow would have to know. Sorry for the long question. Right. Yeah. So does it make sense if you had to spend the 20? Get estimates to find out what it actually is. Don't share those with the seller. You're not required to.
Nope.
But if you have something from the person saying it's at least 20, I could share that.
Yep.
Ronald, howdy. Dion, you mentioned that your rental preference are either tenant occupied or turnkey. Would you ever purchase a tax lien or foreclosure? So my search specifically excludes foreclosures because I don't want to deal with the lending institution. In 2010, 11, and 12, I would have, because they were trying to get rid of everything. But right now, foreclosures are taking 6 months to a year and a half. I don't want to tie myself up on a deal that long. Tax lien, maybe, yeah. My brother has purchased on the steps, the sheriff's sale, where they come out and you just buy and have to have the money there. That's probably something I should look into. You take some risk without being able to inspect the property and those kind of things. But I would consider it.
I bought on tax lien. Yep, I would do it again.
Nicholas, Lumberjack, you said you like 70% LTV. You also said you're now mostly putting 20 to 25% down since you're not house hacking. Does that mean you refi your same properties every couple of years once 30% LTV?
It's so yeah. So in the last it's now a year. In the last year, I've refied 23 properties. For a long time, there was no purpose in refining them because the rates were basically the same. The investment rates from an owner OC, remember, that's how I got a lot of my deals. A lot of them were owner OC loans. Then going to an investor loan, I was a point to a point and a quarter higher. So I had to wait for rates to come down a point and a quarter before I was even money. And then you have to make another 75%, another 75 basis points go down even further. So I had to see a 200 basis point move before it really made sense as an investor. So what I did was I took it as a bundle, as a package, and I went to the bank and I said, here's a bunch of mortgages you guys don't own right now. There's 10 of them in this bundle. I want to refi all of them with you, but I want a rate on the entire bundle. And so I was able to, at that time, negotiate a 4% 30-year fixed rate on that entire bundle. And almost everything in that bundle was in the 5s and some in the low 6s. So I had a massive cash out to the tune of about 7 figures, over 7 figures on both of those. But I wouldn't bring anything higher than a 70% loan to value. I could have pushed it and said, I want 75, but 70% loan to value, that's where I was comfortable because I knew I had enough equity in there. And it made the bank take notice that I was more conservative because I wasn't asking for 80%. I wasn't asking for 75. I went with 70%. I said that's a good number, but I want you to do the whole bundle. And so I will, like now I can redo the property and then I can put a bunch of money in the property and then I can do a refi out. But I like to be more organized than that and kind of let some maturity, let it season a little bit. But there have been some deals like that I've done in the last year or so. But yeah, there's no hard and fast rule like this is the way it has to be in this amount of time. It's much more trying to bundle it to get a really good deal with the bank to say, I'm going to redo 5 mortgages with you guys, or 7 or 10. In this case,
James J.
it was 10, 10, and 3.
Nice. James J says, thanks for sharing your knowledge. William Kraft, howdy. And I'm going to burn through these questions really quick because I know it's getting late there. If you need to turn a den into a 3rd bedroom for a property to cash flow, should you do it? I have turned a den into a 3rd bedroom to improve cash flow. Think of this though. Is it on sewer or septic? If it's on septic, you can make bedrooms for renting. But when you go to sell, the septic won't allow that to be counted as a bedroom. It will be a den, even though it qualifies in every other way as a bedroom. So if your strategy is like mine, better than my marriages until death do we actually part, then maybe, yes, I would do it. How is your municipality with permitting in case a tenant reports you or finds out that it's not a legal living unit? Some municipalities actually require that you give back every penny in rent they've ever paid. So be really careful with that. I would make sure everything was permitted and done right if possible. I've done it several times where I've turned a den into a bedroom, not planning to sell on septic, but gone through permitting anyway. So I don't know if I would do it if it had to happen to get cash flow, because what if you can't? Talk to contractors in your area too. Find out how easy your municipality plays along. I think you've done several like that too, Matt, where you turn rooms into rooms. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sam says hit the like button. Thank you. Rob, Matt. Help Dion get a bobblehead. Can't figure out the hair design yet on that Zuber 2. Ophir, howdy. Thank you, Dion and Matt. You are helping a lot of people. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to.
Mark, howdy. Would you burr out all your money and have almost no cash flow, or take the cash to reinvest? Do I need the cash flow I don't need the cash flow to live. The income is nice, but I feel in reinvesting would be better. You have 2 different people in front of you. I've never done a burr. I've never done a cash out refinance. I've never taken out a home equity line of credit, and I've never sold a 1031. I like to put money into a property so that it goes to work and leave it there. Matt has done all of those strategies.
I have.
But so here, look at the comparison. 10 years of investing, 16 rental units. 22 years of investing, 121 rental units. So if your goal is a massive portfolio that generates way more cash than mine, that is a strategy that will work. You will scale faster. You will gain more appreciation. You'll have more principal pay down. You'll have all kinds of benefits that I don't have. I was working towards financial freedom with as minimal number of rental units as I could. If I could have done my brother's strategy of getting 10 paid off, I might have done that. Do the home equity paid off, and just rinse and repeat. I didn't have a house that had equity. I was underwater on it. I didn't have his skills to do like the sweat equity to fix places up and buy them super cheap. I had to buy rent ready or occupied, and he could buy places that were falling down. Since it was a HELOC, it didn't have to qualify for FHA or conventional or any of that kind of stuff. It was just, he had the money. So both strategies work. What are your end goals?
Yeah, not a huge fan of burr right now. Burr really works in an trending up market. It does not really work in a flat to trending down market. And you're far too subject to what they're going to refi it at. That is an advanced strategy. I don't care how many channels tell you it's not. It's an advanced strategy, period, in the story.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger disagreements between me and BiggerPockets is they really talk burr because it's sexy and it gets a lot of views. I actually say don't do it. Like one of the videos on my channel, one of the first ones I did was how to burr and why I don't.
Yeah.
When you're first starting out, you know, how long is a rehab going to take? How much is a rehab going to cost? Can you get your after repair value anywhere even close? Did you know that refinancing cash out is completely different than refinancing to purchase? It's going to be a higher interest rate, and your ARV is going to be based off of purchases from 6 months ago, because when you purchase, there's a human being trying to buy the property. So that usually sets where the appraisal is going to be. But when you're doing a cash out refinance, nobody's trying to buy it. So getting that amount doesn't base it on the current comps, it bases it on comps from 6 months ago. So like there's all these things that you can mess up on the burr, where if it's your first couple of properties and you need the burr to work for you to continue, I recommend don't do it. If you're 5 to 10 years in and you have the cash flow and you have the basics down and you can handle making a couple of mistakes and your cash flow will cover that, and you're in a trending up market like the last 10 years, maybe. We are not in a trending up environment. All of us agree prices are going to come down from where they're at. Some of us think they're going to go below where they were last year, which would be like a 30 or 40% drop, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think that is going to happen. The largest ever 1-year drop market wide that we've ever seen in the country, the United States, is 8.9% in a 1-year period. So to think that it's going to drop 40% in the next year is ambitious. I think it might drop 10 or 15% because we've got such high wish list prices, but I don't see 30 or 40. So we're not seeing it trending up. Burr is going to be a challenge.
Agreed.
Sam, do you just copy and paste fridge model into Google and say, is this model rebranded, or did I just did and didn't find much results? That's a Matt question because I don't do.
Yeah, then the other thing you can do too is you can ask a local appliance store, or you can just look on the inside. But yeah, if it doesn't come up as rebranded, then it probably isn't. But I would just ask a local appliance shop because they can tell you, oh, that's actually a Samsung fridge. They can tell you that. If you give them a model number, and then they'll say they can look up parts, and then they'll see dash Samsung or something like that.
Beth steps in with some actual real industry knowledge, which this actually points to one of the reasons why I am not a real estate agent. Hey, Dion, heads up. Our contracts, same as your area, say buyer shall not deliver any portion of inspection report. If you sent it without seller requesting it, you'll be waiving your inspection. Correct. So you have an inspection period that you can pull back out of and not lose your earnest money. It doesn't mean you're required to have an inspection. So having the inspection, to me, I get to the point where I'm going to buy this at my price, but so no matter what, I'm going to buy it at this price. I'm going to try to negotiate it down. So I send the inspection report parts there, not my agent, because I can get them in trouble because agents are held to a higher standard. I'm not. I'm just an uneducated investor. So I could send those, negotiate, and I've done it 3 or 4 times where the price does come down. I think one time it dropped like $2,500 was the smallest drop. If the seller came back and said, nope, that's our firm number, I was committed to buying it, didn't care. So I wouldn't be pulling out of the inspection out of the deal based on this anyway. So you're right, though. Know your local laws. But that is on one of the long list of reasons why I'm not an agent, because I don't want to know the rules like that.
Certainly don't want to be held accountable for the rules like that.
Yeah. Okay, Hayes, thanks for your time, guys. I always learn something new every time I listen. Awesome. Have a great week. Tim Crawford. Good night, guys. Past bedtime. Awesome. Angel R. Howdy. Lumberjack. I have wood siding on one of my properties. Some boards are rotten. Do you think it's worth repainting or to save replace with vinyl?
Depending. So if it's normal clapboard, what I would recommend is looking at, you can probably get a bundle of clap for, $50, $60. And a bundle of clap will probably do whatever's rotten. So what I would do is I would just look at pulling those existing pieces. If you're ambitious, if you're not, I would just have a contractor come out, because you can pull those clapboards and you can actually see if the sheathing of the house is actually rotted. And if the sheathing of the house is rotted, then it wouldn't matter about siding anyway. One of the little known secrets about vinyl siding is that it will actually create essentially water behind it, And so one of the things that people don't understand is when you vinyl over existing clapboard that already has a rot problem, you are going to speed up that rot problem. So I would talk to a professional, have them take a look at it. If it's what's called punky, which means you push on it and it's a little squishy, or if it's literally like falling away, just have a pro look at it. It's not a big repair. I wouldn't vinyl the entire house because you have a few areas that might be it. We just bought 2 bundles and just made some repairs based on an insurance company report that we did. The entire job cost me $400. Siding the house would have cost me $12,000.
Awesome. That information right there just got the like button. Cool.
Sweet.
And then we got a bunch of people checking out for the night because it's late, and we're going to wrap it up here. Dawn, thank you. Nina, thank you. Johnny, thank you. Rob, thank you. Leviathan, howdy. Meant to get back to you, but this is the first stream I've caught. I did get that second property, the FHA debacle, from a month ago. Awesome. Through Fairway. That's who I recommend. We're the only ones who can close it. Awesome. Congratulations. And Ring Sinker, what was your cash flow for you both when you got to 4 properties? Oh, I know mine, so I'll let you go first.
You should go first because I can think of
Okay.
mine.
Give you some time to think.
Yeah.
So I got to 4 properties and then paid off 1 mortgage. That's when I figured out the cash flow. It was $2,700 a month. and I was house hacking. So had I moved out of the house hack, that unit would have rented for 1,500. So cash flow would have been more. But I preferred having a low housing expense myself. So that's what it was at 4. But I wouldn't have been that way with single family. I had 1 single family and 3 duplexes.
Yeah, so I had a single family, 2 duplexes and actually another single family. So I had 2 and 2. Cash flow was probably only about $2,000 a month. Wasn't a lot after 4.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but that's life changing.
Yep.
It's $2,000 a month that come in whether you get out of bed or not. That's what people don't understand.
Yep.
$300 or $400 a month becomes life changing.
Sure.
And then you double it, and then you double it, and then the income snowball kicks in. Awesome. Everybody have a week full of amazing, and I will see you this Thursday on the Three Amigos.